Chapter 31:13. That depends on whether you have the right to take it or not, Yi Shiwen said faintly. You're about to die, yet you're still thinking about other people's things. It seems that God has sent you here to kill you. Ha ha ha, this Emperor's seal is mine. Your origin and your adventure are also mine. The Seventh Moon Emperor laughed. His smile was very cold. He had truly sublimated. The killing intent in his heart spread out, and it was difficult to suppress it. Boom! A terrifying explosion rang out, and the Seventh Moon Emperor's entire body exploded, revealing a vast expanse of chaos. His figure stepped on a beam of moonlight, and he instantly pounced on Yi Shiwen with a dragon rise and phoenix fall. He instantly arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. He suddenly attacked. The way he attacked was very elegant, and it was also very fast. Every attack of his was destructive. His speed had reached the limit. The law of light was vividly reflected in his body. With one attack, endless divine power was sent out. It was so strong that it could destroy the world with one attack. Not far away, the old man quickly retreated to Fairy Tianmiao and the Seventh Moon Emperor's side. He opened up his inner world to protect them. Under such fluctuations, it was not easy for them to protect themselves. Bang! The attack directly hit the Emperor's seal. The 3,000 martial arts that were used to protect the Seventh Moon Emperor's body were directly penetrated. Although the Seventh Moon Emperor's strength had decreased, the comprehension and skills that he had left behind in the past were still there. This attack displayed an extremely high level. It was almost no less than that of the Lord of the Nirvana realm and the others. A sound like metal colliding was heard. The Seventh Moon Emperor's palm even left a faint mark on the Emperor's seal. Although the mark was quickly repaired, it was still shocking enough. Under this terrifying attack, Yi Shiwen was also forced to retreat again and again. He was sent flying by that terrifying power. With his strength, he could compete with ordinary sovereign emperors. However, he was almost unable to withstand this attack. If he had not used all his skills at the critical moment, he would have been seriously injured by this attack. This was a peerless and powerful enemy. Yi Shiwen could only rely on the tool spirit to resist the Seventh Moon Emperor's attack. His chances of winning were not high. However, Yi Shiwen didn't show the slightest sign of weakness. He moved almost as soon as the Seventh Moon Emperor's attack fell. The wings of time unfolded behind him. He and his original body were two sides of the same coin, so he naturally knew all the martial arts that his original body knew. Naturally, he could use the wings of time easily. It was just a matter of the depth of his cultivation. Yi Shiwen's feet emitted rays of light that covered the entire sky. His entire body evolved into countless extremely dazzling rays of light. Each of these dazzling rays of light was an extremely powerful attacking method. All kinds of magical power techniques had emerged thoroughly. He raised his speed to the peak as well. He activated the Martial Emperor seal in his left hand and the 6 Paths of Reincarnation fist in his right hand, attacking with all his might. The Seventh Moon Emperor was not angry. Instead, he laughed and went up to meet the Seventh Moon Emperor. Bang! This was an intense clash that was rarely seen since ancient times. It was extremely rare to see a battle between an Imperial Lord and a Tao artifact spirit. Puff! Yi Shiwen coughed up blood again, and his entire body was sent flying. The Seventh Moon Emperor's palm landed on his chest, and a huge hole appeared in his chest. However, no blood sprayed out. Instead, countless spirit energies and the divine chains of rules that entangled him instantly collapsed. After all, he was a tool spirit, and he was condensed from a tool spirit. He didn't have a physical body. He only had a spiritual body. Yi Shiwen had suffered a big loss in this fight. You're just a tool spirit after all. Your original body is indeed powerful. Even a tool spirit can contend against an Imperial Lord. However, you're not your original body. Even a Tao artifact can't compare to an Imperial Lord's methods. If you don't become an emperor, you'll forever be an ant. The seventh Moon Emperor sneered. His smile was extremely cold, and he taunted Yi Shiwen as he attacked. You're indeed powerful, but in the end, all you can do is slightly delay the time of your death. Endless spirit energies were being absorbed from Yi Shiwen's body, and they were replenished. Yi Shiwen didn't show the slightest bit of emotion in the face of the seventh Moon Emperor's tyrannical strength. It was as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. You're still so stubborn at a time like this. The seventh Moon Emperor's expression was cold, but he soon noticed that something was wrong. The spirit energies in the world were gathering toward the center of the valley at an astonishing speed. From afar, it looked as if the spirit energies had condensed into a huge cocoon. It was thousands of miles tall and hundreds of miles wide. A huge cocoon was taking shape, and it seemed as if some terrifying existence was brewing inside. A sense of oppression gradually appeared in the world. Ordinary people might not be able to sense it, but it was not a problem for experts like them. They could sense things that most people couldn't sense at all. He's coming out of his closed-door training. The seventh Moon Emperor immediately understood that Yi Shiwen's original body was about to come out of his closed-door training. It was obvious that Yi Shiwen's martial emperor's seal was stalling for time. It was waiting for the seventh Moon Emperor's seal to attack so that it could deal him a thunderous blow. No matter how confident the seventh Moon Emperor was, it was still rumored that Yi Shiwen had already stepped into the sixth realm. At the very least, he was at the peak of the fifth realm. Such a person was definitely not someone to be trifled with. Are you stalling for time? The seventh Moon Emperor's expression turned ugly for the first time. You've finally realized it now. Isn't it a little too late? Yi Shiwen's expression became even more indifferent. If I had let you leave earlier, you might have had a chance to live. But now you're dead meat. Kill. The seventh Moon Emperor roared. I'll kill you before you come out of your closed-door training. The seventh Moon Emperor clearly had no other choice now that he had been forced into such a corner. Divine light burst from his eyes, and he directly launched an attack at Yi Shiwen. He knew that Yi Shiwen couldn't dodge this attack. Otherwise, the seventh Moon Emperor would have broken through the place where his original body was undergoing closed-door training. This was the seventh Moon Emperor's greatest source of confidence. Yi Shiwen couldn't dodge this attack, and he had many options to choose from. Sure enough, it was just as he had guessed. Yi Shiwen didn't dodge this attack. It seemed that both of them had realized that the time was almost up. Yi Shiwen immediately used the martial emperor's seal to protect his body, enveloping himself completely. Although his spirit body was far more tyrannical than the average physical body, he was at a complete disadvantage in this kind of collision. Yi Shiwen's whole body shone, and a powerful aura burst from it to resist the seventh Moon Emperor's attack. Clang! A terrifying attack from the seventh Moon Emperor landed directly on the martial emperor's seal. The martial emperor's seal began to buzz as it withstood a terrifying pressure. The terrifying power blasted directly into it. If it had been an ordinary Taoist tool, it would have exploded on the spot. The martial emperor's seal manifested all kinds of martial arts, which were suppressing this terrifying power and preventing the martial emperor's seal from collapsing. In a normal battle between sovereign emperors, the Taoist tool and the sovereign emperor would work together to share the counterforce of the other's attack. However, the martial emperor's seal could only be resisted by one person alone. The seventh Moon Emperor's attack was truly terrifying. The aftermath of the battle between the two of them was enough to drown the entire universe. If this had happened outside, it was unknown how many continents would have to sink before this battle could be considered over. Boom! The martial emperor's seal finally turned this terrifying power into a raging energy wave, which shot straight into the sky. The entire sky was pierced, turning into endless primal chaos that leaked down. This primal chaos was extremely dangerous, and it could even seriously injure a sovereign emperor. The outstanding young man felt his scalp go numb. He had never seen the power of a battle between sovereign emperors of this level. Compared to these sovereign emperors, quasi-emperors like them were really too weak. They were really ants. For the first time, he truly felt what it meant to be an ant. If it wasn't for the protection of his master, any of the aftermath of the battle could completely annihilate him. He wouldn't even have a place to cry. He has become stronger. Fairy Tian Miao's eyes widened, and her beautiful eyes were full of vigor. No matter how terrifying the seventh Moon Emperor was, he could no longer move her. She was a first-class peak quasi-emperor in the world, and she was determined to become a sovereign emperor. What really shocked her was that Yi Shiwen had become stronger. Compared to the battle on Celestial Pole Island, the current Yi Shiwen was much stronger. Even if he was just a tool spirit, he was probably more powerful than the Azura Holy Emperor back then. She had cultivated to this level, and she felt that every step forward in the quasi-emperor realm was extremely difficult. She had been stuck in this realm for many years, and she had never seen any hope of breaking through. However, Yi Shiwen had actually advanced by leaps and bounds in just a few years. Could it be that cultivation and breakthrough were as simple as eating and drinking to him? Could it be that there was no difficulty at all? Or could it be that according to the information collected by their religion, he might have been injured in the past, and was now just recovering his strength? This seemed to be the most likely explanation. Otherwise, the speed of Yi Shiwen's rise would be too astonishing, and it would be enough to make people tremble in fear. Boom! 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 Just as Fairy Tian Miao's imagination was running wild, the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Seventh Moon Emperor had reached a white-hot stage. Facing the Seventh Moon Emperor, who had already begun to fight desperately, Yi Shiwen was constantly being defeated and seriously injured. If it wasn't for the fact that his body was a spiritual body, and if it was an ordinary body, there was no way he could withstand this. Even so, the battlefield between the two sides was constantly approaching the center of the valley. The Seventh Moon Emperor continued to attack. In order to intercept and kill Yi Shiwen before he came out of closed-door training, the Seventh Moon Emperor had already given his all. He had even begun to burn the source of his body to increase his combat power. Although the tool spirit of the Martial Emperor's seal also possessed the ability to fight against an Emperor, there was still a huge gap between it and the Seventh Moon Emperor. It was constantly being beaten back and sent flying. Bang! The Martial Emperor's seal was sent flying again. The Seventh Moon Emperor was planning to take advantage of this opportunity to pursue and attack. Suddenly, an even more terrifying aura wantonly emerged from the center of the valley, and a figure rushed towards him at lightning speed. Chapter 31:14. With the appearance of this figure, even the heavens and earth prostrated under this powerful aura. A terrifying aura that soared into the sky filled the air. Yi Shiwen, who was sent flying, was also waved by him. He turned into a Martial Emperor's seal and fell into his hand. It was Yi Shiwen's supreme body. The Seventh Moon Emperor immediately stopped his pursuit because he knew that the real main character had appeared. From Yi Shiwen's aura, he could tell that this was an extremely terrifying enemy. Yi Shiwen was able to escape from the heavenly Taoism and make such a name for himself. It was not without reason. This is his true body? Immediately, the outstanding young man was shocked. Just now, it wasn't his original body, but the spirit of the Tao treasure had already shocked him so much. Now that his original body had appeared, it brought with it an unimaginable might. Fairy Tian Miao was also extremely shocked. In her opinion, the Martial Emperor's seal's Tao tool spirit was already more tyrannical than Yi Shiwen. Now that Yi Shiwen's true body had appeared, she completely understood that she had been too naive before. His true body was many times more terrifying than the Martial Emperor's seal's Tao tool spirit. The old man's eyes widened and thousands of thoughts spread in his mind. He had seen Yi Shiwen once from afar, but Yi Shiwen was not so terrifying at that time. At that time, Yi Shiwen was just an ordinary sovereign king. Although he was worth recruiting, it was not necessary to do so. Now, Yi Shiwen's aura was close to that of a small tycoon. Once he entered that level, he would be an influential figure in the Fortune God dynasty. Even if he did not cross that level, the Fortune God dynasty must recruit him. If they could recruit such a character, the Fortune Divine dynasty's strength would undoubtedly rise again. You are the Martial Emperor's true body? The Seventh Moon Emperor's face revealed a somewhat serious expression. He was no longer as relaxed and casual as when he faced his Tao Tool spirit avatar. There was a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. Instead, you barged into hell. You could have left just now, but now, you will die. Yi Shiwen said coldly. Martial Emperor, don't be too arrogant. You are very strong, but you are still dreaming if you want to keep me here. There was a hint of fear on the Seventh Moon Emperor's face, but he still had the pride of being an emperor. Martial Emperor, don't be so arrogant. Really? I can't stop you? Yi Shiwen sneered. Xiao. As soon as Yi Shiwen's voice fell, an incomparably mysterious great array appeared under his feet. Endless laws of speed manifested, covering the entire world in an instant. Behind him, the wings of time directly unfolded. Yi Shiwen's figure transformed into an extreme fluctuation that was hard to imagine in this world. It surpassed the extreme speed of this world, and directly attacked the Seventh Moon Emperor. The Seventh Moon Emperor hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen would attack without saying a single word. Therefore, he had been caught off guard. It should be said that Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. Even if he had been on guard, it would have been useless. Yi Shiwen's attack pierced through all the moonlight defense on his body, and pressed on his body. Bang! The Seventh Moon Emperor's physical body instantly exploded. He was smashed into pieces by the attack, and his flesh and blood scattered everywhere. Yi Shiwen's speed was unparalleled. His comprehension of the time law had reached a whole new level in such a long period of time. So, his speed had become even more unparalleled. In fact, it had even affected the stability of time and space when he moved. Peak of the Sixth Realm. The Seventh Moon Emperor's body reformed in the distance. There was an unimaginable look of horror in his eyes. His opponent was already at the peak of the Sixth Realm. He had also stepped into this realm not long ago. No, it should be said that although he had also stepped into that limit when he was at his peak, his combat power was nothing compared to Yi Shiwen. The person in front of him was too terrifying. Even when he was at his peak, he had never seen an existence in this realm who could display such combat power. The old man's eyes were completely wide open. He knew very well how terrifying the peak of the Sixth Realm was. In the Pan-Heavenly Palace, such a cultivation was definitely enough to sweep away all enemies. It was at least several realms away from the rumored information. When he was fighting with the Shura Holy Emperor, he had definitely concealed his strength. No wonder the heavenly Taoism couldn't do anything to him. Not only was he strong, but his mind was also unfathomable. Yi Shiwen did not pursue further. He just looked at the Seventh Holy Emperor indifferently. After all, the Seventh Holy Emperor was an emperor-level creature. He was already at the peak of the supreme level, so his recovery ability was naturally very amazing. Coupled with his innate magical power, his recovery speed was extremely fast. Even if he was seriously injured by Yi Shiwen, it would only take a short moment for him to recover. You disappoint me. Is the Moon Emperor of the Moon Clan only at this level? Yi Shiwen said indifferently. His face was filled with endless confidence. No one could be compared to him in this realm. His eyes disdainfully looked at the world. The strength and arrogance of a dignified martial emperor was undoubtedly reflected. Yi Shiwen, don't be too happy too early. It's just that you've snatched the initiative, the Seventh Moon Emperor said slightly angrily. Yi Shiwen did not take him seriously at all. That kind of attitude was extremely annoying. Is that so? Yi Shiwen attacked again. His speed directly surpassed the speed of light. Even the timeline was disturbed by him. No one had the time to see Yi Shiwen's figure clearly. When the seventh Moon Emperor saw Yi Shiwen again, he saw that Yi Shiwen had already appeared in front of him. Yi Shiwen pressed his palm into the seventh Moon Emperor's body. Bang! The seventh Moon Emperor's body exploded once again. His shoulder had been pierced by Yi Shiwen's attack, and half of his body had been blasted apart. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. He simply couldn't defend against it. His speed was simply too shocking. The seventh Moon Emperor quickly jumped away. His whole body was shining. There was a secret technique running in his body. He wanted to fight against Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. At the same time, he was too strong. He had forced the seventh Moon Emperor to come out, so he did not dare to hold back. He is too strong. The seventh Moon Emperor is no match for him, the outstanding young man said. Now that things had come to this, even a peak quasi-emperor like him could see that the strength of the seventh Moon Emperor and Yi Shiwen was too far apart. The seventh Moon Emperor was seriously injured with just a casual move. He was unable to fight back at all. They were not on the same level. I must rope such a big shot into our holy cult of Nine Nether. Fairy Tianmiao had such a thought in her mind. It did not dissipate because of the reverence in her heart. Only now did she realize how ridiculous the conditions she used to rope in Yi Shiwen were. No wonder Yi Shiwen refused without even thinking. Such a big shot was already half a step into the ranks of the giant. Using the conditions to rope in an ordinary emperor to rope in her was a problem in itself. A big shot naturally had a price tag for a big shot. The old man beside her had the same thought as her. He had also learned a lot about Yi Shiwen. Under the management of the Fortune God dynasty, there was no one in this world who could completely hide from the Fortune God dynasty's intelligence network. But Yi Shiwen seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. There was only one possibility. He was originally an emperor from another world. Such things were not rare in the long history of the Fortune God dynasty. An emperor with a clean background like this was the best target to rope in. While these people were thinking about all kinds of things, the battle between Yi Shiwen and the seventh Moon Emperor had already entered a white-hot stage in the distance. Yi Shiwen kept attacking. His movements were unusually elegant. His hair and clothes fluttered in the wind. He looked indescribably transcendent. Under Yi Shiwen's powerful attacks, the seventh Moon Emperor was no match for him. His body was constantly being bombarded. Every time, a large half of his body would be smashed into pieces, and blood would splatter all over the sky. Compared to Yi Shiwen, the seventh Moon Emperor's strength was far inferior. This situation was similar to the time when the seventh Moon Emperor killed the Martial Emperor's Seal's Tool Spirit. However, the situation was completely reversed. The seventh Moon Emperor originally had the upper hand, but now Yi Shiwen had the upper hand. The situation had been reversed too quickly. Yi Shiwen, don't push me too far. The seventh Moon Emperor was constantly being beaten back, and he kept roaring angrily. So what if I push you too far? I told you to leave just now, and now you want to leave? Yi Shiwen sneered, and his attacks did not stop. During this period of closed-door training, he had successfully advanced to the peak of the sixth realm. Just this alone had completely consumed the time origin of the old ancestor of the time beast that he had plundered previously. Moreover, a lot of the level 2 dragon vein in his body had also been consumed. Originally, it would have taken a lot of time just to advance from the sixth realm to the peak of the sixth realm. In the end, in order to catch up with time, Yi Shiwen used the time fragments and used up the remaining time fragments in one fell swoop. Only then was he able to progress by leaps and bounds in this short period of time. In addition, he had finally mended the time robe. With the time fragments in the old ancestor of the time beast, it had been completely mended. Its power was no less than before, and it was even stronger. It could be said that the current Yi Shiwen's cultivation had truly soared to an unprecedented level. He was becoming stronger with every passing second. Once he found the Pill Emperor and obtained the Tai Vitality Gathering Pill, his cultivation would truly be able to step into the 7th realm. He would then become a small tycoon of the 7th realm and an influential figure in the Fortune God dynasty. Under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen was naturally unscrupulous and attacked at will. Roar! The 7th Moon Emperor roared again and again. The moonlight laws around his body fluctuated continuously, and it could even be seen with the naked eye. A majestic power surged from his body and directly blasted into the unknown mysterious existence. It turned into a giant hand, and it seemed to have snatched something from the mysterious existence and returned to his body. Chapter 31:15. As that thing entered the body of the 7th Moon Emperor, the 7th Moon Emperor's entire body shone brilliantly, as if he was a shining crystal. He was like the only ruler of the world, and he wanted to kill the strong enemy in front of him immediately. His body was surrounded by terrifying fluctuations of the laws. Countless laws turned into divine chains, firmly protecting him. The strength of the 7th Moon Emperor increased at an astonishing speed. He gradually rushed into the 6th realm, and even reached the peak of the 6th realm. He actually took back his fruit of the way through the river of time. Although it is only for a while, it is troublesome enough. The old man's expression immediately became serious. No matter what, at this time, he and Yi Shiwen should be considered to be on the same side. His eyes were sharp, and he immediately saw that the 7th Moon Emperor was also using a magical secret method to take back his former fruit of the way. This method was very similar to the method he used to take back his fruit of the way, but each method was different. But in general, the essence was still the same, so he immediately understood. Took back my former fruit of the way? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. This kind of secret method was not something he had, because there was no need for it. He had never encountered a situation where his strength fell sharply like this, so naturally, there was no need for him to develop a similar secret method. Otherwise, with his martial arts, it would not be difficult to create a method that belonged to him. For these invincible figures who had climbed to the peak, taking back their former fruit of the way was indeed a life-saving method. Although it was helpless, it was extremely effective. Yes, Yi Shiwen, I used to be a cultivator at the peak of the 6th realm. In this realm, there is no way you can defeat me. The 7th Moon Emperor's expression was extremely cold and ferocious, and he hated Yi Shiwen even more. If it was not for Yi Shiwen, would he have used such a move that would hurt both sides? It should be known that this kind of move seemed to be infinitely powerful, but in reality, it was very dangerous, and one had to pay a huge price. It was not a method that could be used under ordinary circumstances, and it could only be used to save one's life. He wanted to use this move to repel Yi Shiwen, but obviously, he was wrong. So what if you are at the peak of the 6th realm? It just so happens that I have not found a suitable opponent since I came out. Not only was Yi Shiwen not afraid of his cultivation at the peak of the 6th realm, on the contrary, he was also treating him as an opponent to hone his skills. He was also at the peak of the 6th realm, so he wanted to prove that he was the most invincible one. Yi Shiwen's palm shot out. Then, it transformed into a seal and fell down with the overturning the sky seal. Then, it rumbled towards the 7th Moon Emperor. Boom! The seal shone with dazzling light and turned into an astonishing celestial light that slammed toward the 7th Moon Emperor. The 7th Moon Emperor roared angrily. He had temporarily regained the cultivation of the peak of the 6th realm. He was no longer the same as before. At least, he was not as powerless as before when he faced Yi Shiwen. On his body, the endless moonlight transformed into a feather robe, draping over his body. Yi Shiwen's overturning the sky seal directly fell on the feather clothes on the spot. Immediately, the overturning the sky seal smashed a hole on the feather clothes. Moreover, there were some traces of weathering on the entire feather clothes. It was like an antique that had just been dug out from the ground. All kinds of traces of weathering were densely packed, giving people goosebumps. This is the power of time. The seventh Moon Emperor's expression immediately changed. His moonlight feather clothes seemed to be a kind of magical power, but in fact it was also a Taoist tool. It did not appear out of thin air. As an emperor-level creature, the ordinary power of time could not leave any traces on his body, let alone on his moonlight feather clothes. But Yi Shiwen did it. Not only did he break his moonlight feather clothes, but he also imprinted the power of time on it. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that in the previous rumors, Yi Shiwen seemed to have seized the old ancestor of the time beast and left. At that time, he did not take it to heart. Even if he had really seized the old ancestor of the time beast, so what? How much could he have comprehended in such a short time? But now that they had just exchanged blows, he realized that he was wrong. Yi Shiwen's understanding of the power of time had truly reached a shocking level. It was very terrifying that he could actually leave mottled traces of time on his moonlight feather clothes. Wait! The seventh Moon Emperor took a few steps back. Although Yi Shiwen's attack did not send him flying, he had no choice but to retreat again and again to neutralize the terrifying power contained in Yi Shiwen's attack. Yi Shiwen's attack was fast, and the power was terrifying. At this time, he began to regret in his heart. If he was given another chance, he would never be willing to get involved in this. But at this time, he had no other choice. He absolutely could not retreat, because Yi Shiwen had no intention of letting him go. The three people in the distance did not dare to approach at all. The power that the two of them had erupted was already the limit of everyone in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. It was the power of the sixth realm. This martial emperor is really amazing. There are not many people who can use the power of time to this extent since ancient times. The old man's eyes were as sharp as a knife, and he could see through many things. Although his skills were no longer there, his experience was still there. Naturally, he was very clear that when one reached the Emperor realm, he would be a peerless hero who had walked the most unique path of their generation. They had already begun to come into contact with the domain of time. But that was only the domain of time. Everyone's understanding of the domain of time was also different. In fact, most people only had a slight understanding of it. It was impossible for them to give up their own way to study the way of time. Based on his many years of experience, there were not many people who could compare to Yi Shiwen's level of mastery. Given Yi Shiwen's situation, it was indeed very shocking. In fact, he was even interested in the world that Yi Shiwen was born in. It should be known that not all worlds could give birth to emperor-emperors. That was only possible if the laws were complete. Moreover, the worlds that could give birth to emperor-emperors were usually emperor-emperors of the first realm. As far as the Fortune God dynasty knew, there were only a few emperor-emperors who were as powerful as Yi Shiwen. Humph! In the distance, Yi Shiwen continued to attack. The seventh Moon Emperor had already climbed to the limit. He threw out all kinds of laws and magical powers like they were free, hoping to stop Yi Shiwen. Every pore of his was releasing the aura of the laws. But it was useless. Yi Shiwen had extreme speed, and his attack method was even more amazing. He directly shattered the magical powers and laws that were bombarded towards him. He did not show any weakness at all. Compared to the hysterical seventh Moon Emperor, Yi Shiwen's attack was undoubtedly much more elegant. It was as if he had transformed into 1,000-armed guanyin, shattering the world. It was as if he had returned to the era when chaos was first created. All kinds of terrifying attacks rained down. The seventh Moon Emperor coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. The moonlight feather robe on his body was densely covered in cracks and traces of time. Such an intense battle broke out in an instant. It was unknown whether they had exchanged hundreds or thousands of blows. Yi Shiwen was always calm and unhurried. He completely suppressed the 7th Moon Emperor and did not care about his counterattacks at all. The 7th Moon Emperor was also like a deflated balloon. After his combat power soared to the limit, it slowly began to decline. He had used some kind of secret technique to stimulate the potential of his life to retrieve the fruit of Wei from before. However, this kind of secret technique could not be used forever. After using it for a certain period of time, it would quickly decline, and his combat power would become increasingly weak. But no matter what he did, he could not escape from Yi Shiwen's attack range. Yi Shiwen's attacks seemed ordinary, but they always locked on to him and sealed off all the escape routes. Every attack could make him vomit blood. He could see that Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry to attack. He was well aware of the weakness of this kind of secret technique. It could not be used for a long time. Sooner or later, it would completely disappear. After that, not only would his combat power decline, but it would also decline to a terrifying level. After all, doing this would hurt the origin of the Great Path. Death was not something that could be taken lightly, but waiting for death like this was truly terrifying. "I'll fight you to the death." After being forced into a desperate situation by Yi Shiwen, the 7th Moon Emperor was already on the verge of a mental breakdown. He was going to fight with his life on the line. An unimaginable power surged out of the 7th Moon Emperor's body. He gathered all the martial power in his body and launched a fatal attack. He wanted to fight for life in the face of death. This majestic power transformed into an astonishing torrent of energy and directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. This was a terrifying attack that would shock even a peak level 6 cultivator. It was unknown how many mystical abilities and laws were contained in this torrent. The essence of his entire life was condensed in this attack, so it was naturally terrifying. "Humph, you're courting death." Yi Shiwen smiled indifferently. He did not move at all. He just slapped the torrent of energy with his palm. Bang! The entire torrent of energy was slapped on the spot. The collision between both sides created extremely terrifying waves that spread in all directions. Then, an even more terrifying scene took place. Yi Shiwen's big hand grabbed down, and directly grabbed and extinguished this torrent of energy. This terrifying attack that had gathered the power of the 7th Moon Emperor had been easily extinguished by Yi Shiwen. Impossible! The 7th Moon Emperor was completely shocked and couldn't believe it. His all-out attack couldn't even hurt Yi Shiwen a little. "Don't you understand? The gap between you and me is like the gap between heaven and earth." Yi Shiwen's cold voice came. His figure suddenly appeared on the spot like a flying immortal. He directly punched out 6 paths of reincarnation, suppressing the 7th Moon Emperor on the spot. Bang! The 7th Moon Emperor, who had already exhausted all his martial power, could not resist at all. He screamed and was killed by the punch. Chapter 31:16. The 7th Moon Emperor was killed by Yi Shiwen with a single punch. None of the other 3 had any doubts about this result. Yi Shiwen had completely crushed the 7th Moon Emperor. The 7th Moon Emperor was not a match for him at all. Therefore, they had no doubts about Yi Shiwen's final victory. However, the fact that Yi Shiwen could easily kill the 7th Moon Emperor had completely subverted their worldview. In particular, their worldview about how difficult it was to kill an emperor had been completely subverted by Yi Shiwen. Even an emperor was not truly immortal. It was just that they had not met someone who could kill them yet. Yi Shiwen had just killed the 7th Moon Emperor and collected his corpse. The other 3 hurriedly came over to thank him. "Thank you for your help, Taoism friend," said the old man. "Thank you for your help, senior," said the outstanding young man and Tian Miao Fairy. Yi Shiwen nodded and said, "No need to stand on ceremony." He did not want to intervene in this matter. After all, he had reached a critical point in his cultivation. Although he would not fail at the last step like when he was breaking through to the next realm, he would still suffer a great loss. Therefore, Yi Shiwen didn't want to intervene. However, both of them had unleashed the battle prowess of an emperor lord. This had seriously affected the efficiency of the Lingqi absorption of the great array he had previously arranged. It had even affected his comprehension of the Great Way. This had finally forced him to come out. Taoism friend, your rapid progress in cultivation is really amazing, said the old man with a sigh. The old man sighed and said, compared to Yi Shiwen, who was courageous and diligent, he was already old and frail. This was undoubtedly an extremely cruel punishment for a person who used to be a supreme expert of the world. Taoism friend, you flatter me. Yi Shiwen faintly smiled, but I don't know why Taoist friend is here? I'm sorry to say this. I didn't know that this was fellow Taoist's place of seclusion. I thought that some precious treasure was about to appear, so I came to try my luck. Who would have thought that I would be attacked and brought trouble to fellow Taoist? I'm really sorry that fellow Taoist almost failed at the last step. The old man also had an embarrassed expression on his face. In any case, he had attracted a powerful enemy for Yi Shiwen. Although the Seventh Moon Emperor did not cause any trouble for Yi Shiwen in the end, he would undoubtedly hate Yi Shiwen if he had caused any trouble. To sovereign emperor experts, there was no greater grudge than someone hindering their progress in cultivation. Especially for an imperial lord, every step forward was extremely difficult. As a former emperor, he knew this very well. Yi Shiwen slightly smiled. After all, he didn't cause any trouble in the end. So, he was too lazy to pursue this matter. Moreover, harvesting the corpse of an emperor-level life-form was already a good harvest. However, fellow Taoist, I'm surprised that you're still here and haven't entered the depths of the Pan-Heavenly Palace, the old man said. What's wrong? Has everyone entered the depths of the Pan-Heavenly Palace? Yi Shiwen asked. During this period of time, he had been in closed-door cultivation and hadn't paid much attention to the news around him. So fellow Taoist didn't know? That's right, fellow Taoist has been in seclusion all this time, so it's very normal that you don't know. The old man nodded in realization. Yi Shiwen had been in closed-door training during this time, so it was normal that he didn't know. It is said that some time ago, someone found traces of the Pan-Tian Palace in the depths of this world. The old man did not hide anything and quickly told him what he knew. Now, many emperor lords have gone to the depths of the Pan-Tian Palace world. They all want to find the true inheritance of the Pan-Tian Palace. The old man continued, only people like us who know our own limits and know that it won't fall into our hands in the end didn't go and join in the fun. Pan-Tian Palace. Yi Shiwen's eyes burst with brilliance. No wonder everyone went to the depths of the Pan-Tian Palace world. It turned out that the Pan-Tian Palace had appeared. In this Pan-Tian Palace world, the most important thing was the Pan-Tian Palace. After all, this Pan-Tian Palace was related to the inheritance of the Pan-Tian Emperor. In particular, many emperor-level lifeforms wanted to know the method that the Pan-Tian Emperor used to cut off his own Tao, reshape his Tao body, and finally become a supreme heavenly lord. After all, this was related to their future. As for the other emperor lords, the fact that the Pan-Tian Heavenly Venerate had been able to enter the Supreme Heavenly Venerate realm would be a great reference for them. Moreover, the Pan-Tian Palace itself was an artifact that had been difficult to find since ancient times. If they could obtain the Pan-Tian Palace, they would undoubtedly have a great say in the creation realm. It could be said that the vast majority of people came for the Pan-Tian Palace. As for the previous time Beast Emperor Ancestor and so on, they were simply a bonus. Even Yi Shiwen was excited when he heard this news. Thank you for telling me. It seems that I missed a lot of things during my closed-door training. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said, I can't. I don't know how to repay you for saving my life just now. This is just a piece of news that everyone knows. It's not a big deal, the old man quickly said. Yi Shiwen thought for a while and then said, "If there's nothing else, then I'll leave first." "It's okay. You can leave on your own," the old man said. "Okay." Yi Shiwen nodded. Then, he stepped on an escape light that filled the sky and disappeared in front of the three people. The outstanding young man couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. The pressure he felt in front of Yi Shiwen was too great. Although Yi Shiwen had never targeted him, but when an ant faced a giant, there was no need for the giant to release his malice. The gap between them was enough to create a terrifying coercion. Fairy Tian Miao's eyes flickered with a complicated light. In the end, she didn't mention her invitation. She was also intimidated by Yi Shiwen's power and didn't know how to mention it. The gap between them was too big. However, she wasn't willing to be at ease. She had to pass the news back and ask the sect to send someone with enough weight to invite him. It would be a pity not to invite such a person back. The old man couldn't help but sigh and said, "Sigh, this martial emperor's future is really limitless. I'm afraid that the Heavenly Tao sect won't be able to do anything to him. They might even become his stepping stone." "Master, he isn't that powerful. The Heavenly Tao sect is the world's #1 sect that can challenge our Fortune God dynasty. No matter how powerful Yi Shiwen is, can he compare to the Heavenly Tao sect?" That outstanding young man's tone was somewhat unconvinced. However, he didn't have much confidence. After all, Yi Shiwen's strength was far inferior to his in any case. So, he couldn't comment on such a big shot. "Sigh, you don't understand." The old man sighed slightly. He just faintly felt that Yi Shiwen's arrival was like the prologue of a new era. After Yi Shiwen bid farewell to the three, he quickly flew towards the depths of the heavenly palace. Along the way, there were many powerful ancient foreign creatures that were dominating the area. However, they were too weak in front of Yi Shiwen. They weren't a match at all. Moreover, Yi Shiwen saw corpses everywhere along the way. It was obvious that the Fortune God dynasty and the foreign forces had joined forces to sweep in. The native ancient foreign creatures in the heavenly palace were no match at all. They were annihilated one after another. The world of the Pan-Heavenly Palace was very big. However, he soon approached the center of the world of the Pan-Heavenly Palace without any obstruction due to his cultivation. From afar, he could already sense terrifying auras rising one after another. Many Emperor-level creatures and Emperor-level creatures were fighting against the ancient foreign creatures in the Heavenly Palace. The inheritance of the Heavenly Palace was very profound. In particular, when the Heavenly Lord of the Heavenly Palace dominated the Stormy Sea region, he selected the elites to enter the Heavenly Palace. Therefore, many Emperor-level creatures were born in the Heavenly Palace. Compared to the Emperor-level creatures of the Fortune God dynasty, the probability of the birth of Emperor-level creatures in the foreign domains was greatly related to their bloodline and talent. Therefore, the more powerful the race and bloodline, the more Emperor-level creatures could be born. At this time, some of the camps were already fighting together. It was a chaotic battle. In the depths of the core of the Heavenly Palace, an incomparably huge mountain range floated in the void. It constantly swallowed the spiritual energy of the world and transformed it into the spiritual energy of the 5 elements. This caused the entire mountain range to emit a 5-colored light from afar. A powerful figure directly flew over this mountain peak and landed. On the mountain range, many quasi-emperor and god-king level foreign creatures crawled down. The sky-shaking turtle emperor is back. This person was none other than the sky-shaking turtle emperor who had fought with Yi Shiwen before. However, the expression of this sky-shaking turtle emperor was obviously not very good. This was because in front of him was another ferocious-looking middle-aged man. This middle-aged man's body was emitting a dazzling light. Even though he was on the 5-colored mountain range, he did not restrain it. In his divine kingdom, there were many gods chanting ancient scriptures, which contained a terrifying power. "Sky-shaking turtle emperor, I heard that you lost to that human emperor called Yi Shiwen?" The middle-aged man spoke rudely as soon as he opened his mouth. The sky-shaking turtle emperor's expression became even more unsightly. He said coldly, "Why are you here? Why am I here? It's because the old ancestor heard about you and specially sent me here. This time, there can be no mistakes in the matter of seizing the heavenly palace. The old ancestor had high hopes for you. Who would have thought that you can't even fight a human? You've really disappointed him." The middle-aged man said coldly, "Humph, he was just lucky that time. He took advantage of the situation when we were seriously injured by the time-beast old ancestor. When I see him again, I will definitely cut him into 8 pieces." The sky-shaking turtle emperor narrowed his eyes and said, "That better be the case. Since I'm here, the 5 prison peak will be under my command. You don't have any objections, right?" Chapter 31:17. As soon as the middle-aged man came up, he seized the command of the 5 prison peak. Although the sky-shaking turtle emperor was angry, there was nothing he could do because he knew how important the sky-shaking turtle emperor was to the pan-heavenly palace. For the sky-shaking turtle emperor, there was still a long way to go before they could be promoted to the celestial master realm. However, for the sky-shaking turtle emperor, everything was within reach. Because of this, the orthodoxy of the pan-heavenly palace was so important. It was likely to record the experience of breaking through to the celestial master realm. If this matter was messed up, he did not doubt that the sky-shaking turtle emperor would tear him apart. Although he was high and mighty in the sky-shaking turtle clan and seemed to be one of the few supremes, he knew very well that before the sky-shaking turtle patriarch passed away, the sky-shaking turtle clan and its many subsidiary clans would only have one true ruler. That was the sky-shaking turtle emperor. The person in front of him was the last disciple of the sky-shaking turtle emperor, Guiyuan Ba Huang. The battle between the two was not the first or second day. One was the last disciple of the sky-shaking turtle emperor, and the other was the clansman of the sky-shaking turtle emperor. It should have been hard to tell who was the winner since their cultivation was also in the 6th realm. However, because of Yi Shiwen's defeat, there was a clear winner, at least for the time being. This made him hate Yi Shiwen even more. He could not wait for Yi Shiwen to appear immediately and tear him into pieces. "I have no opinion." The sky-shaking turtle emperor could only clench his teeth and say, "I know you are unwilling, but it is useless. You are not as good as me after all. After I get the pan-heavenly palace for the ancestor, it is only a matter of time before I advance to the 7th realm." Guiyuan Ba Huang did not care about the anger of the sky-shaking turtle emperor at all. For him, the two were not on the same level at all. Although they had always been in the same realm, his strength was enough to suppress the sky-shaking turtle emperor. The things here are not something you can handle. Whether it is the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor or the Eternal Divine Emperor of Tiandao, they are all at the peak of the 6th realm. You are not their opponent at all. Hegemon Guiyuan taunted mercilessly, which made the sky-shaking turtle emperor even angrier. However, he knew that Hegemon Guiyuan was probably right. Although the gap between the 6th level and the peak of the 6th level was not insurmountable, it was still a huge gap. Fortunately, he has many enemies. The heavenly Taoism has dispatched the Eternal Divine Emperor to kill him in addition to seizing the heavenly palace. We can kill him together to eliminate future troubles. Hegemon Guiyuan continued. Also, I've thought about it. That Yi Shiwen dared to provoke us. So, he must die. Fortunately, he has many enemies. What? You want to cooperate with the Fortune Divine Dynasty? The sky-shaking turtle emperor looked as if he couldn't accept this. After all, the grudge between the Fortune Divine Dynasty and the Outer Heavens domain had long been irreconcilable. Only when one side fell would it end. Why not? We have a common enemy. So, what's wrong with joining hands? Moreover, that Yi Shiwen was able to snatch the Time Beast Emperor ancestor from your hands. He can be regarded as a threat. So, we can't ignore him. We must find a way to get rid of him. Hegemen Guiyuan said coldly, all those who obstruct me from seizing the heavenly palace must die. Don't worry, we don't need to say it. We just need to form a tacit understanding. The eternal divine emperor has always been unscrupulous. As long as we release a little of our intentions, they will understand. We won't be caught red-handed, and we don't need to worry about those old fellows. How can a person who achieves great things be entangled in trivial matters? The sky-shaking turtle emperor clenched his fist. Hegemen Guiyuan was simply lecturing him like a subordinate. He didn't take him seriously at all. Even his tone was not restrained at all. However, he was now under the control of others. For him, there was nothing he could do. If he ruined the old ancestors' plans because of this matter, then the consequences would be unimaginable when he returned. Since you're the one making the decision, then you can make the decision. There's no need to ask me. The sky-shaking turtle emperor flicked his sleeves and directly entered the depths of the 5-prison peak to cultivate. The 5-prison peak was a magic treasure. At the same time, it was also a sacred place for cultivation. The 5 elements of spiritual energy were very rich. For aquatic creatures like him, a place with abundant water attribute spiritual energy was a sacred place for cultivation. Seeing the sky-shaking turtle emperor like this, Hegemen Guiyuan laughed loudly. Originally, the sky-shaking turtle emperor and he had been competing for many years. The two of them were not fighting for a moment of anger, but for the leadership of the entire group. This was because the emperor-level creatures could not exist forever. Even an invincible existence like the sky-shaking turtle old ancestor would die of old age one day. Therefore, there was a replacement among the foreign creatures. The sky-shaking turtle clan itself was a colossus. Not to mention, there were many other clans attached to the sky-shaking turtle clan. Both sides were fighting for this leadership. This was the first time that he had completely suppressed the sky-shaking turtle emperor's temper. Immediately, he felt extremely carefree. So what if he was a member of the sky-shaking turtle emperor's patriarch's clan? In this world, cultivation was still the most important thing. Pass down my order. Find that human emperor called Yi Shiwen. Once you find him, immediately inform the heavenly Taoism. Although Hegemen Guiyuan also wanted to eliminate Yi Shiwen, he understood the principle of killing with a borrowed knife. Compared to them, the eternal divine emperor wanted to kill Yi Shiwen more. Moreover, both sides were competing for the heavenly palace. Naturally, it was excellent to use this opportunity to make them kill each other. Even if Yi Shiwen was not a match for the eternal divine emperor in the end, it was enough to cause great trouble for the eternal divine emperor. And in the distance, a figure quickly swept past, bringing along endless Gungjin royal energy. Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. Hegemen Guiyuan immediately recognized the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. Both of them were around the same age. In the past, when the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was still serving the Fortune God dynasty, both of them had fought more than once. Furthermore, after the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor entered the Stormy Sea region, with their similar cultivation and age, he became the target of comparison for countless people. They had fought countless times in the open and in the dark, but it was difficult to determine the victor. Therefore, he was very familiar with the Gungjin Tiger Emperor. What is he doing here? As soon as Hegemen Guiyuan's voice fell, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor had already appeared on the 5-prison peak. The 5-prison peak emitted the power of the 5 elements in an attempt to suppress the outsider, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor. However, it was easily broken by the Gungjin Tiger Emperor. His understanding of the Gungjin Dao had reached a level rarely seen since ancient times. Even a magic treasure like the 5-prison peak could not affect him. Gungjin Tiger Emperor, I didn't expect you to come here. What a rare guest. Hegemen Guiyuan greeted him. Although the Gungjin Tiger Emperor was infamous, Hegemen Guiyuan was not afraid of him. When the Gungjin Tiger Emperor saw Hegemon Guiyuan, he was a little surprised. He could not help but say, "Why is it you? Where is the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor? I have taken over here now. He went down to cultivate. You can look for me if you need anything. I have full authority to handle it," said Hegemon Guiyuan lightly. "Since you are here, it's just as well," the Gungjin Tiger Emperor said. "The only forces in the outer domain that can be considered powerful here are the two of us. Have you ever thought of joining forces with me? After we drive out the people of the Fortune God dynasty, we can decide the ownership of the Pan-Heavenly Palace. What do you think? You, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor, actually have a time when you need to find someone to join forces with. It's really not easy," Hegemon Guiyuan said with a faint smile. His smile contained a hint of ridicule. He had fought with the Gungjin Tiger Emperor many times, but he had never gained the upper hand. How could he not hit the Gungjin Tiger Emperor when he was down? "I heard that you've been hunted down by Emperor Li recently," Hegemon Guiyuan said without any fear. Sure enough, when the Gungjin Tiger Emperor heard this name, his face suddenly changed. After a long time, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor said, "You don't have to be so proud. It's true that I am on the wanted list, but don't forget that you once infiltrated the Fortune God dynasty and slaughtered hundreds of millions of lives in order to cultivate the demonic technique. The people of the Fortune God dynasty still remember this matter. You don't know how many people want to skin you alive. Do you think that Emperor Li will let you go when he sees you?" To a large extent, the opposition between the Fortune God dynasty and the creatures of the outer domain was like this. Many of the supernatural powers of the creatures of the outer domain were extremely ferocious and went against the natural order of nature. They would slaughter many lives at the slightest provocation. In the chaotic era of the past, ordinary lives trembled under the rule of these creatures of the outer domain. They could be slaughtered by the tribe at any time. Hegemon Guiyuan's face changed slightly. He raised his eyebrows and said, "So what? Do you think I'm afraid of him? You may not be able to deal with him alone. Moreover, the eternal divine emperor of the heavenly Tao is also here. If the two of them join forces, do you think we have any hope of seizing the Pan-Heavenly Palace?" the Gungjin Tiger Emperor said calmly. Hegemon Guiyuan's face suddenly changed. Although he knew that the relationship between the Heavenly Tao and the Fortune God dynasty wasn't good, it was still easy for them to join forces and drive the creatures of the outer domain out of the game first. If that happened, it would be too late for them to cry. "What you said makes sense. That's fine. We can join forces first until the ownership of the Pan-Heavenly Palace is determined." Hegemon Guiyuan finally realized that he couldn't stop the two of them at the same time. "In addition, I want you to join forces with me to kill someone." The Gungjin Tiger Emperor's expression became colder and colder. "Who?" Hegemon Guiyuan asked. "That human emperor called Yi Shiwen. I want him to die without a burial place," the Gungjin Tiger Emperor said coldly. Chapter 31:18. That human emperor called Yi Shiwen. I want him to die without a burial place, Tiger Emperor Gungjin said coldly. Tiger Emperor Gungjin's face was filled with hatred. It was Yi Shiwen who had made him a laughingstock. God knows how many times he had been ridiculed in private. "So it's him," Hegemon Guiyuan said with a slight smile. He did not reveal that he originally wanted to cause trouble for Yi Shiwen. Instead, he wanted Tiger Emperor Gungjin to owe him a favor. "I've heard of it. I didn't expect you to remember it." Others were afraid of Tiger Emperor Gungjin and did not dare to mention his scars in front of him. "I am Hegemon Guiyuan and do not have such scruples." "Humph. No matter what, he is still a big problem. I have fought with him before. Although he is not as strong as us, he is far stronger than an ordinary Sixth Realm sovereign emperor. If we leave him alone, he will definitely cause big trouble for us." The gunmetal tiger king looked slightly displeased, but he didn't act up. Both of them had their own ulterior motives. If they could defeat Eternal Divine Emperor and the others in the end, a war would definitely break out. In order to seize the Heavenly Palace, they were only reluctantly teaming up because of the pressure from Eternal Divine Emperor and Emperor Li. Whether it was Hegemon Gui Yuan or Gung Jin Tiger Emperor, both of them were peerless powerhouses who were only a step away from stepping into the realm of a giant. In the fortune realm, such people could call the wind and summon the rain, and were existences at the level of an ancestor. Naturally, they had supreme pride in their hearts. However, their opponents were also very strong. Emperor Li was one of the most terrifying officials in the Fortune God dynasty. Whenever he took action, few rebels could escape. Eternal Divine Emperor was one of the top emperors in the Heavenly Tao. He had been famous for countless years. Even if the two of them teamed up on the surface, it was enough to put great pressure on Hegemon Gui Yuan and Tiger Emperor Gung Jin. This was the main reason why they teamed up. If there were only the two of them present, they would have already started fighting. How could they have a peaceful conversation? I understand. It's fine if he doesn't show up, but if he does, we'll make him bleed on the spot. I heard that the Eternal Saint Emperor has a mission to kill him. If the Eternal Saint Emperor makes a move, we'll just watch from the side. If the Eternal Saint Emperor doesn't make a move, it won't be difficult for us to kill him with our strength. Hegemon Gui Yuan said indifferently. His gaze had always been on Tiger Emperor Gung Jin and the other two. As for Yi Shiwen, he was not a concern at all. Although a sixth realm sovereign emperor is troublesome, if the two of us work together, we'll have a 90% chance of success. This person is cunning and good at fishing in troubled waters. We need to send more people to prevent him from fishing in troubled waters from afar, the gunmetal tiger king repeatedly reminded. His veins were twitching as he thought of this. He had indeed been attacked by Yi Shiwen once. Yi Shiwen had beaten him until he lost his temper. Originally, he had never worried about such a problem. Even the aureole behind had to be a praying mantis. However, he wasn't a praying mantis. He was an eagle. Wouldn't it be suicidal for the aureole behind the eagle? However, he didn't expect that the aureole behind him wasn't an aureole, but an equally ferocious eagle. This made him lose his footing and become the object of ridicule for countless people. Therefore, he must be very vigilant against such a thing this time. He couldn't let the tragedy of the past happen again. Don't worry, he definitely won't have such a chance. However, Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan didn't take it to heart. He had enough confidence in himself. Moreover, the key reason why the Gungjin Tiger Emperor was ambushed by Yi Shiwen was that the Gungjin Tiger Emperor was seriously injured. If it was in its peak state, how could it have given Yi Shiwen an opportunity? Moreover, if he dares to show his face, we don't need to do anything. The Eternal Divine Emperor alone won't let him go. This person had beheaded an emperor of the Heavenly Tao sect before. How can the Heavenly Tao sect let it go? Well, if that's the case, then I won't say anything more. The gunmetal tiger king just nodded lightly. Then, he stepped on the gunmetal energy, and his figure instantly disappeared into the void. Humph! Gui Yuan Bahuang smiled coldly. He looked at the direction where the gunmetal tiger king had disappeared. He was already thinking of many plans in his mind. He wanted to include the gunmetal tiger king as well. Then, he would make both sides suffer. Finally, he would reap the benefit. That would be the best. At this time, on the other side, a group of more than a dozen emperors had gathered together. Their divine kingdoms were connected. Countless gods in their divine kingdoms were mobilized everywhere. They were fighting with many foreign creatures in the surroundings. These dozen emperors were in the center of these divine kingdoms, controlling the situation. And in the middle of these dozen emperors, it was none other than the Eternal Divine Emperor. He sat on a cloud bed with his legs crossed. It seemed like he was comprehending the supreme path. Mysterious laws were scattered around his body. Why? Is there still no news of Yi Shiwen's whereabouts? The Eternal Divine Emperor said slowly. However, he didn't open his eyes. It seemed like he was still in cultivation. Not yet. It seems like he won't appear. A emperor said. He also knows his limits. If he hides, he can still live. However, if he wants to fight for the heavenly palace, he will really be courting death. I heard that the Gung Metal Tiger King is also looking for him. He is dead meat. Humph, if we can't find him, our trip will be incomplete. I originally planned to kill him before the heavenly palace appears to avoid future troubles. The Eternal Divine Emperor said. His tone seemed to be a bit regretful. Let's work together to calculate the time of the heavenly palace's appearance. We must be extremely accurate. If we are faster than others, it will be enough to determine the outcome. At this time, the Eternal Divine Emperor also temporarily put Yi Shiwen's matter aside. He began to calculate the time of the heavenly palace's appearance with the other emperors. Ever since everyone had seen the heavenly palace in the depths of the world of the heavenly palace, they began to calculate the time of the heavenly palace's appearance. Although their cultivation was deep and shallow, and their calculation ability was strong and weak, they basically calculated the time of the heavenly palace's appearance. It was nothing more than when it would appear. With everyone's cultivation, they could even calculate the specific time of the appearance of the heavenly palace. In a battle of this level, a 1-second lead was enough to determine the outcome. At this time, there was only one person on the scene who was crazily killing. This person was none other than Emperor Li, who had chased after the Gung Metal Tiger King. Emperor Li had become an emperor through the fierce Tao. His whole body was covered with a fierce aura. It seemed as if he was born from the fierce aura. It was said that his original body was born in an extremely fierce place. Therefore, he was very fated with this Tao. The other emperors at the peak of the 6th realm were adjusting their state. They weren't in a hurry to attack. However, he didn't care. He attacked unscrupulously. As long as it was a foreign creature, it wouldn't have a good ending if it fell into his hands. For others, killing foreign creatures was just an instinct. For him, these foreign creatures were a kind of point and a kind of merit. It could be transformed into his strength at any time. To him, killing was a form of improvement, a form of cultivation. It was like the reincarnation of the Sha Di. He had enough strength, so he didn't have to worry at all. No matter when the heavenly palace appeared, it couldn't leave him behind. In addition to him, there were many emperors and emperors fighting on the battlefield. They were fighting with the ancient foreign creatures in the heavenly palace. At the same time, they were also fighting with each other. They exchanged each other's blood for merit and seized others' fortuitous encounters. At this time, Yi Shiwen had just arrived at the edge of the battlefield. He didn't know that among the 4 experts at the peak of the 6th realm, 3 had already decided to kill him. If it was someone else, they would have been scared and trembling. However, it was nothing for Yi Shiwen. Even if the 3 parties joined forces, he was not afraid. In the same realm, he was invincible and fearless. Yi Shiwen had just stepped into the edge of the battlefield when he suddenly noticed that someone had seen his figure. The moment they saw him, they immediately fled into the depths of the battlefield. Someone is waiting for me? Yi Shiwen immediately reacted and understood what was going on. Perhaps someone had been waiting for him here for a long time. Yi Shiwen immediately raised his cultivation to the peak, ready to fight at any time. However, the first person who flew toward him was completely out of his expectations. It was none other than Emperor Li. Are you that martial Emperor Yi Shiwen? Emperor Li was the first to arrive in front of Yi Shiwen. There seemed to be a playful expression on his face. However, under the contrast of his expression, it looked very fierce. Yes. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. The person in front of him was actually the strongest expert from the Fortune God dynasty, Emperor Li. In this heavenly palace, He was a powerful figure who could be compared to the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor. Although he didn't have any grudges with the Fortune God dynasty, he didn't dare to be careless at this time. If Emperor Li suddenly attacked him, it would be troublesome. A little interesting. How about it? Are you interested in joining the Fortune God dynasty? With your strength, if you enter the Ministry of Justice, you will be a big shot, only below me. Emperor Li said with a smile. Below you? Yi Shiwen raised his eyebrows slightly. Why? Below me? Do you have any questions? Emperor Li didn't get angry. He just revealed a playful smile. Chapter 31:19. Are you trying to recruit me? Yi Shiwen frowned and asked. So what if I am? Emperor Li said with a smile. He put his hands behind his back and stood in the void. It was as if he was the ruler of the world, and the galaxy revolved around him. The more intense the murderous aura on the battlefield, the more nourishing it was for him. He could constantly absorb the murderous aura for his own use. I'm afraid you're not qualified to recruit me. Yi Shiwen smiled faintly. His expression was incomparably arrogant. Oh? Then tell me, who is qualified to recruit me? Emperor Li's brows slightly wrinkled, but he wasn't stupid. From the information he had obtained, Yi Shiwen had probably already entered the sixth realm. It was indeed unlikely that such a big shot would be subdued so easily. However, he was also confident. With his strength, he was naturally far more powerful than the average sixth realm. He was not worried that he could not convince Yi Shiwen. No one in the world is qualified to recruit me unless I am willing. Otherwise, no one can force me. Yi Shiwen said faintly. In the myriad world, he was a peerless emperor who could sweep away a region. Even if some other emperors appeared later, no one could be compared to him. For a person like him, he was broad-minded. In the future, he would go straight to the sky to look for the legendary fortune and reproduce the supreme achievements of the legendary founder of the Fortune God dynasty. Ha ha, ambitious. Ha ha, you're ambitious. I've heard of you. You're from another world, right? I don't know how you ruled the world in that world, but this is the Fate Realm, the true core of the endless world. Here, it's impossible for you to be invincible with your cultivation. If you don't rely on a powerful force, you won't be able to survive well. Emperor Li laughed loudly and did not take it seriously. He had met many powerful emperors from different worlds like Yi Shiwen. These people had long been accustomed to domineering in various worlds. Naturally, they would not easily bow their heads. However, in his opinion, it was not a big deal at all. Even if you want to rely on the Fortune God dynasty, I don't think the Fortune God dynasty only has the Ministry of Justice, Yi Shiwen said. As far as he knew, although the Fortune Divine dynasty unified the outside world and suppressed powerful enemies in all directions, in fact, there were countless forces running amok inside. Not only were there conflicts between the Fortune Divine dynasty and the major sects, but there were also conflicts between the Central Divine dynasty and the local regions. There were even more conflicts between the various major families in the Central Divine dynasty. The Ministry of Justice was just one of the bigger forces, and it could not be considered as covering the sky with one hand. Even if he had to temporarily rely on someone, he had to choose the most powerful one. Interesting, but it's not a good thing to bite off more than you can chew. The human tribe is not a powerful tribe in the Fortune realm. Emperor Li smiled faintly and was not annoyed. Yi Shiwen immediately understood the meaning of Emperor Li's words. Emperor Li thought that Yi Shiwen wanted to stand on his own. It wasn't impossible. However, those people often had an unimaginably powerful clan behind them. With the support of such a clan, it was enough for these sovereign emperors to separate a region and fight against the Fortune God dynasty. However, there were very few who could do this. Just like how not all the major sects and clans dared to challenge the Fortune Divine dynasty like the Heavenly Tao sect, there were only a few among the local races and clans who could cover the sky with one hand. I am who I am. I don't need to rely on external forces, Yi Shiwen said. An idea emerged in his mind. Perhaps after obtaining the Tai Soul condensation pill from the Alchemy Emperor, he could go to the human tribe in the Fortune God dynasty. There were many secrets in his heart that he had yet to unravel. There were also humans in the Fortune God dynasty. Was it related to the human tribe in the myriad heavens? Moreover, as far as he knew, there were also human emperors in the myriad heavens who were going to the Fortune God dynasty. Besides Emperor Qin, there were also human emperors who were coming. He also wanted to see if he could meet them. After all, no matter what, they were not only of the same clan, but also from the same hometown. Their relationship was undoubtedly closer than that of others. You have ambition. However, ambition alone is useless. As far as I know, whether it is the Eternal Divine Emperor, the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor, or the newly arrived Gui Yuan Hegemon Emperor, they seem to be looking for you everywhere. When the time comes, the three of them do not need to join forces to kill you. However, as long as you rely on me, the Ministry of Justice of the Fortune God dynasty will naturally be your backer. With me behind you, they will not be able to do anything to you. Emperor Li was incomparably confident. He looked at Yi Shiwen with a hint of arrogance in his eyes. Thank you for your kindness, Emperor Li. However, if you want to recruit me, then forget it. If we form an alliance, then I can consider it. Yi Shiwen said lightly, there are many treasures in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. It is impossible for one person to monopolize it. How about we join forces? You want to join forces with me and form an alliance? Emperor Li did not think that Yi Shiwen would actually say this because he had never had such an idea. An ordinary sixth realm was only an ordinary sixth realm. After all, it could not be compared to the peak of the sixth realm. In his mind, only the Eternal Divine Emperor was qualified to form an alliance with him. As for the other two, they were in the camp of foreign creatures. He would not consider them. Otherwise, even if he obtained the Pan-Heavenly Palace after leaving, he would inevitably be investigated. A groundless accusation could cause him to be tossed around unbearably. Yes, form an alliance, Yi Shiwen said. He looked at Emperor Li and then said, I know that you may not believe in my strength now. Now, I will show you my strength, and see if it is enough to be your ally. Then come and try, Emperor Li said lightly. There was a bit of surprise in his eyes. Since Yi Shiwen dared to say this, he must be confident. Otherwise, who would dare to say such a thing? At this moment, almost in an instant, an astonishing divine radiance turned into a terrifying attack and blasted towards Yi Shiwen's head. It wanted to pierce through his head or directly explode it. Boom! This attack directly turned into a sky full of auspicious radiance, and then spread in all directions. It immediately attracted the attention of countless people on the battlefield. Except for the experts in the fierce battle, everyone else noticed the situation here. They did not know what was going on, but it was obvious that the person who was directly blasted should be dead. Who could withstand the terrifying attack of the Emperor Li? However, just when everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was dead, the multicolored mist dissipated. They saw Yi Shiwen standing quietly in the void. The attack just now did not even penetrate his defense. It was directly blocked. In the distance, an Emperor Li suddenly opened his eyes wide because he did not expect that his full-strength attack could not hurt Yi Shiwen at all. It could not even make him waver. How can this be? While he was still in shock, Yi Shiwen, who was still in the distance, suddenly appeared in front of him. Yi Shiwen simply patted him with his hand. Boom! The Emperor Li was slapped on the spot, and then an even more strange scene happened. His chest that was slapped began to wither, and then, inch by inch, it turned into flying ash and disappeared into the sky. It was as if it had been weathered after hundreds of millions of years. Then, only a blood-curdling scream was heard, and the soul of this Emperor Lord was directly grabbed by Yi Shiwen. Then, this soul didn't make any movements, but it began to age inch by inch, collapsed, and died in front of everyone. All of this took time to describe, but in fact, it happened extremely fast. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. Only Emperor Li, who was present, saw all the movements immediately. The others waited for a while before finally replaying Yi Shiwen's movements. With just one blow, a Third Realm Emperor Li was slapped to death. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great. There was a gap of 3 realms between the Third Realm and the Sixth Realm. Not everyone had the strength and ability of Yi Shiwen to escape from the Sixth Realm Emperor Li. This Third Realm Emperor Li wanted to get a reward from Heavenly Law. He thought that he could delay until the experts of Heavenly Law came to support him. After all, the distance was not far. For an Emperor Li, it would only take a few breaths of time. However, it was these few breaths of time that took his life. He never thought that he could not even hold on for a few breaths of time. What kind of strange power is this? The Emperor Li destroyed it just like that. Many people opened their mouths wide, especially those Emperor Li and Emperor-level creatures. They only felt a chill on their backs. If the same method was used on them, would they be able to escape? Perhaps there was really no way. The power of time, it's the power of time. It can't be wrong. Someone finally recognized it. If this wasn't the terrifying power of time, then what was it? Moreover, not all Emperor Li and Emperor-level creatures had more or less dabbled in the power of time. On the contrary, this clearly showed that the power of time had been cultivated to an extremely profound level. Even the physical body and spirit of the Emperor Li could not resist the erosion of this power of time. Time had taken away their lives. How is this possible? Someone can comprehend the power of time to this extent. Although everyone knew the answer, they still couldn't believe it. They also knew that the power of time was very terrifying. Apart from the power of time, it was impossible to kill an Emperor Li in one move. Only time was the root of everything. However, the power of time was also very difficult to cultivate. It was simply beyond their understanding. Even Emperor Li was a little surprised. Yi Shiwen's cultivation of the power of time could be described as extremely beautiful. Where is Yi Shiwen? A deep and resounding roar was heard. A figure took the lead, and a big foot stepped down towards Yi Shiwen. Chapter 31:20. Where is Yi Shiwen? With a deep roar, a figure took the lead and stomped down on Yi Shiwen with a big foot. This big foot was not a real foot, but a kind of manifestation. It was condensed from the power of heaven and earth. With the power of the Emperor level, it could almost crush a galaxy with one stomp. This was an extremely terrifying power. Endless laws intertwined and condensed into this big foot, trampling on millions of demons. Many people felt their pupils shrink at once. The existence of the Sixth Realm. Many people recognized at once that this terrifying big foot contained the terrifying power of the Sixth Realm. In the Pan-Heavenly Palace, this was almost the pinnacle existence. Boom! This foot directly stepped on Yi Shiwen's body almost without any hindrance. However, to everyone's surprise, this foot did not seriously injure Yi Shiwen. It directly fell 3 inches away from his body, and then there was no way for it to advance any further. It was as if it was blocked by an invisible force. Clang! Immediately afterward, everyone only heard the sound of a long sword being unsheathed. They only saw that Yi Shiwen had grabbed Endless Sword Aura in his hand. Endless Sword Aura gathered in his hand like a torrent, turning into a shocking sword aura. In an instant, it slashed out a shocking mark, shattering the heaven and earth, and fell on this big foot. Boom! This big foot directly turned into fragments all over the sky with a loud roar, spreading in all directions. Yi Shiwen's strength had been highlighted incisively and vividly when he had destroyed this big foot with just one strike. "Stop acting mysterious, get out here!" Yi Shiwen immediately grabbed out with one hand like the hand of God, directly grabbing into the void of the endless void, forcibly tearing the void into two halves, revealing the figure of a person. This figure came in a hurry, and before it could even stand firm, it was directly exposed by Yi Shiwen from the void. Wasn't it the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor? The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor was still in shock when his magical manifestation was blasted through by Yi Shiwen's blow. It exploded on the spot, and even his figure was grabbed at once. "So it's you." Yi Shiwen faintly smiled. Beside him, Emperor Li just watched indifferently. For him, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor was only a little troublesome. He wanted to see how Yi Shiwen would deal with it. Yi Shiwen's counterattack was indeed very amazing. Yi Shiwen's strength was indeed more tyrannical than what he knew. However, he was still far from being able to form an alliance with Yi Shiwen. Not everyone was qualified to form an alliance with him. "Hand over the time beast old ancestor, and I'll spare your life." The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor's expression was abnormally cold. However, he started to feel slightly anxious. The situation here had attracted the attention of many experts. He wasn't the strongest expert here. Once the others arrived, he wouldn't have the right to speak. Even Emperor Li, who was by Yi Shiwen's side, was enough to make him very afraid. As one of the deputy ministers of the Ministry of Justice, Emperor Li's reputation in the outer domain was illustrious. Moreover, he was well known in the Fortune God dynasty for being a tough person in the outer domain. If Emperor Li were to attack, even he could only flee. As far as he knew, when the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor was being chased by Emperor Li, he could only flee when he was seriously injured, let alone the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. That was a peerless Sha Emperor. He wasn't someone to be trifled with. However, it was absolutely impossible for him to look on helplessly as Yi Shiwen was free and unfettered, and abandon the Time Beast Emperor ancestor. "Spare my life? Do you think you still have the ability to do so?" Yi Shiwen sneered and looked at the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. "Now, whether you die or not depends on my mood. It seems that you really don't want to accept a toast only to drink a forfeit. Last time, it was only because we were seriously injured by the Time Beast old ancestor that you had the space to take advantage of. Do you really think you have that kind of strength?" The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor said indifferently. "Why don't you try and find out whether I have the ability or not?" Under Yi Shiwen's feet, a large formation directly formed. The power of heaven and earth was boiling, and the laws turned into tangible chains, entangling Yi Shiwen's body. Invisible airwaves swept out in circles, and the terrifying aura that belonged to an emperor lord instantly spread out. Many of the sovereign emperors who were paying attention to this area sensed this terrifying aura and immediately felt that it was extremely terrifying, far surpassing their own. How did this martial emperor become so tyrannical? Many people only felt that it was ridiculous, as if their worldview had been completely subverted. They didn't think that Yi Shiwen had made any progress in such a short time. It could only be that he had been hiding his strength from the beginning. His scheming was really unfathomable. "It seems that you are courting death," the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor said indifferently. He suddenly opened his mouth wide, and in an instant, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth turned into a long river, pouring into his mouth. In just a moment, it seemed as if the spiritual energy between heaven and earth had been sucked dry. Emperor monarchs were the biggest thieves in the world, constantly absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth without any intention of giving anything back. Only a place like the Fortune Divine Dynasty could support so many emperor monarchs. No other place could support so many emperor monarchs. This sky-shaking Turtle Emperor's body emitted a colorful light, which turned into amazing divine power and spread out in all directions. His whole body seemed to be able to crush the world. Boom! In an instant, everything between the heavens and the earth dimmed. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor made his move. One of his hands turned into a sparkling and translucent color. Then, he suddenly slapped towards the void. Then, it turned into a terrifying seal, bringing with it the power to overturn rivers and seas, and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. This seal seemed to overturn the power of heaven and earth, and fiercely suppressed it with infinite terrifying power. Sky-shaking seal, the supreme magical power of the sky-shaking turtle clan. Someone couldn't help but exclaim. The sky-shaking turtle clan's sky-shaking seal was too famous. Once it was used, the world would shake, and it was very terrifying. Previously, when the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor attacked Yi Shiwen, he did not use such a move at all. But now, he used it all at once. One could imagine how angry he was now. Sky-shaking seal? It's a bit interesting. It just so happens that I also know a seal technique. Let's see who is stronger. Yi Shiwen was not surprised, but laughed instead. His hands formed a seal, which turned into the seal of the sky-shaking seal. With a rumbling divine light, it directly smashed the sky, and directly blasted towards the sky-shaking seal. Yi Shiwen did not even use the martial emperor seal, but simply used the seal of the sky-shaking seal to deal with everything. Boom! At this moment, the two seals directly collided with each other, and the sky trembled. Everyone could clearly feel that the entire sky palace was trembling slightly. The power that spread out from the collision of the two was in the form of ripples, and it spread in all directions, bombarding the sky with dense cracks like a spider web. The dazzling light was like a big sun, making people unable to open their eyes. They could only use their spirit to capture the movements of the two. Such a collision stalemate only lasted for a moment. Yi Shiwen's sky-shaking seal directly collided with the sky-shaking seal. Many cracks immediately appeared on the sky-shaking seal, and some time models appeared on it, as if it had experienced the passage of time. It was very shocking. Bang! The sky-shaking seal only lasted for a moment under the attack of the sky-shaking seal, and then it instantly collapsed, turning into energy fragments that dissipated in the sky. It collapsed. The gap between the two sides is too big. Many people captured this amazing scene. With their tyrannical strength, they could naturally see that the strength of the two sides was indeed far apart, and the sky-shaking seal simply collapsed upon contact. And this sky-shaking seal directly fell from the void, and it fell towards the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. Its momentum did not decrease, and its power was unparalleled. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor did not expect that his full blow would collapse upon contact. He was not an opponent at all, and the power of the shock directly shocked his body. At this time, he simply could not care so much, and quickly blasted out another punch, bursting out an amazing immortal light, and went against the sky-shaking seal. Bang! Sure enough, this blow was not an opponent of Yi Shiwen's sky-shaking seal at all. It only resisted for a moment and instantly collapsed, and then this blow directly fell on the body of the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. Dang! On the body of the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor, a battle armor emerged. This was a peerless treasure armor refined from his own turtle shell, and it emerged at the critical moment to save his life. Puff! The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor suddenly only felt a surge in his chest, and his internal organs were shaken. His whole body flew out in an instant, and his originally unbreakable battle armor actually showed traces of crack. For a moment, everyone was silent, and everyone was shocked by Yi Shiwen. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but in fact, it was only a moment. Originally, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor came in a menacing manner, making people think how strong he was, but in fact, under Yi Shiwen's offensive, he could not even resist one move. Was the difference in strength between the two sides so big? Yi Shiwen is really too strong. No wonder the Third Realm's sovereign emperor could not even withstand one move from him and was instantly killed. they are not on the same level at all. This Yi Shiwen has not only cultivated the law of time to a superb level, but his own physical cultivation is also unparalleled. Even when Emperor Li saw this scene, his eyes were shining with the light of wisdom, and no one knew what he was thinking in his heart. Can't withstand a single blow, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. Chapter 31:21. Can't even withstand a single blow. Yi Shiwen's expression was indifferent. He already had a well-thought-out plan. Hearing Yi Shiwen's words, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor felt like vomiting blood. Previously, when he wanted to deal with Yi Shiwen was only at the 5th realm, and he already felt that it was difficult to deal with him. But compared to now, it was simply like heaven and earth. How much time did it take to advance from the peak of the 5th realm to the peak of the 6th realm? Was his breakthrough as simple as eating and drinking? At this time, his heart was filled with incomparable remorse. If he had hardened his heart and eradicated Yi Shiwen first, he wouldn't have left behind such a big disaster. It was a pity that he had been blinded by greed at that time. He had wanted to seize the time beast old ancestor first. In the end, Yi Shiwen had seized the opportunity. And now, Yi Shiwen's strength was even more terrifying. Under Yi Shiwen's attack, he was defeated in just one blow. This was what really made him despair. Just you wait. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor immediately fled into the distance. He did not intend to fight to the death with Yi Shiwen here, and there was no need to fight to the death with Yi Shiwen. But how could Yi Shiwen give him this opportunity? Want to leave? The demon wings behind Yi Shiwen suddenly spread out, and his whole body seemed to teleport as he directly chased after the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. He directly formed a big foot and stomped on the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor fiercely. Boom! All of this was like a replica of when the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor wanted to trample on Yi Shiwen just now, but compared to the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor just now, Yi Shiwen was stepping on his body this time. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor vomited blood again, and then his whole body fell to the ground fiercely. Rumble! Like a comet hitting the earth, it immediately set off boundless waves of dust, and the ground shattered into an astonishing crack that was tens of thousands of miles long. It was bottomless, as if it directly led to the boundless depths of the earth. It's like a game. An Emperor Lord could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva and said. When facing Yi Shiwen, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor had no power to fight back at all. Whether it was speed, the Great Way, or the strength of the physical body, they were completely crushed by Yi Shiwen. That was why he felt as if Yi Shiwen was just playing around and easily dealt with the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. It should be known that this sky-shaking Turtle Emperor was an overlord in the stormy sea region. It could call the wind and summon the rain, and it was an extremely powerful existence. If they hadn't seen him being beaten like a dead dog by Yi Shiwen with their own eyes, how could they possibly believe that this was the infamous sky-shaking Turtle Emperor? You do have some skills. Emperor Li looked at Yi Shiwen with a bit of shock in his eyes. He felt that the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor couldn't pose any threat to him. However, it was impossible for him to defeat the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor so easily. The strength that Yi Shiwen had displayed was really too amazing. He hadn't used any tricks or plots. He had simply and crudely beaten up the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor, but the effect was even more amazing. Yi Shiwen. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor was smashed down like a dumpling. It seemed to have lost all sense of reason as it roared out continuously. Surprisingly, it had reverted to its original form. It was a peerless, ferocious beast over 10,000 zhang in height, like a pillar that could prop up the heavens. This peerless, ferocious beast alone seemed capable of supporting the entire world. His entire head was incomparably huge. He looked ferocious and fanged. His eyes exuded a devouring light as he stared at Yi Shiwen with hatred. How is it possible? How did he transform into his original body? In the distance, Gui Yuan Hegemon, who was cultivating on the 5-prison peak, suddenly opened his eyes. There was still a bit of shock in his eyes, because he discovered that the sky-shaking turtle emperor had transformed into his original body. For these foreign creatures, unless they encountered an opponent that was difficult to defeat, it was impossible to transform from their Tao body to their original body. Especially looking at his ferocious appearance, it was obvious that he had been forced into a dead end. He was still very clear about the strength of the sky-shaking turtle emperor. Although it was not as good as him, it shouldn't be pushed to this point. If he went all out without holding anything back, it might be possible. Could it be that Emperor Li has taken action? He suddenly became nervous. Not only was Tiger Emperor Gung Jin very afraid of Emperor Li, but he was also the same. Emperor Li was definitely an existence of the same level as him. In terms of strength, there was not much difference. He was definitely a difficult opponent to deal with. Although he and the sky-shaking turtle emperor had been fighting for many years and were in a state of competition, he was even more clear that this sky-shaking turtle emperor was one of the successors that the great ancestor favored. If anything happened to him, even he would have to face the boundless anger of the great ancestor of the sky-shaking turtle emperor. He opened his magic eyes almost immediately and looked over there. He saw that the person floating in the void like a peerless demon god was actually not Emperor Li, but an unfamiliar human emperor. However, he had almost immediately guessed the identity of this person. It could only be that martial Emperor Yi Shiwen. He is actually so powerful. Gui Yuan Hegemon was almost immediately shocked. Yi Shiwen could actually force the sky-shaking turtle emperor to this point. Doesn't this mean that his true strength is comparable to me? No, I can't let this go. In the next moment, his figure disappeared in the void. Humph! Facing the sky-shaking turtle emperor who had directly transformed into his original body, Yi Shiwen's expression did not change the slightest. Above his head, the martial emperor's seal was rotating, and around the martial emperor's seal, many powerful magical powers emerged in an instant. 6 paths of reincarnation fist, sky flipping seal, Nanming Li fire, thunder emperor heavenly cannon. These magical powers seemed to have transformed into one human after another, emitting a terrifying aura that almost shattered the entire world into chaos, returning to the endless chaotic era. As long as these attacks were slightly formed, they smashed towards the sky-shaking turtle emperor. Bang! With a loud roar, these magical powers, along with the martial emperor's seal, directly smashed onto the sky-shaking turtle emperor's body, bringing about a sound like metal colliding. The entire body of the sky-shaking turtle emperor shrank into the shell. His shell was engraved with a defensive matrix, like the hardest turtle shell in the world. A burst of sparks flew. Ha ha ha, Yi Shiwen, don't think you can do anything to me. The sky-shaking turtle emperor was extremely proud. This was also the last life-saving magical power of their tribe, and no one could break it at all. This was also the root of their tribe's foothold in the stormy sea area, and it was more important than the sky-shaking seal. Do you really think I can't do anything to you? Yi Shiwen's eyes were extremely cold, and his indifferent voice came out. Above his head, the martial emperor's seal began to grow bigger and bigger, like an ancient divine mountain, glowing with a terrifying divine light, smashing down fiercely. Bang! 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 The martial emperor's seal continued to fall, but there was a continuous sound like metal colliding. In the beginning, the sky-shaking turtle emperor who was hiding in the shell did not feel anything at all. In terms of defensive strength, it was indeed ranked among the best that Yi Shiwen had seen. However, soon, he discovered that something was wrong, because the power that smashed on his body was getting more and more terrifying, and the strength was getting stronger and stronger. Bang! This attack directly shook him to the point that he spat out a mouthful of old blood. How can your strength increase so much? He opened his eyes wide, as if he wanted to see Yi Shiwen's attack clearly. Soon, he saw Yi Shiwen's move. Ominous waves 5 overlapped. This move was also a well-known existence in the Stormy Sea area. How could he not know it? However, he had never seen an outsider use ominous waves 5 overlap. Now, the power of these 5 layers merged together and directly smashed down on one point. Even the defense that he had originally prepared was completely useless. The defensive formation engraved on his back was the first to be unable to withstand it, and it collapsed on the spot, turning into runes all over the sky and dissipating in front of everyone's eyes. Immediately after, the martial emperor's seal directly fell on his back, without any cover. Crack! The place that was smashed by the martial emperor's seal actually had dense cracks appear, and with the place as the center, the cracks spread out in all directions. Bang! Another strike landed, and the densely packed cracks grew even larger. In an instant, Yi Shiwen didn't know how many times he had smashed with the martial emperor's seal, but the huge outer shell finally completely turned into dust under Yi Shiwen's continuous bombardment. He actually broke it? Many people's eyes widened in disbelief. The most troublesome thing about the sky-shaking turtle clan was their outer shell. If they couldn't defeat their opponents, they would hide. Unless it was a big shot whose strength was above the 7th realm, no one else had this ability at all. However, Yi Shiwen did it. Could it be that he was already at the 7th realm? Boom! Without the protection of the outer shell, the sky-shaking turtle emperor almost screamed in pain, and his physical body collapsed in all directions. Although his physical body was also very tyrannical, without the protection of the outer shell, it was nothing in front of the martial emperor's seal. Just one blow had caused his physical body to collapse, and the shocking attack power of the martial emperor's seal was finally displayed in front of everyone. What a powerful seal technique! It actually contains 3,000 kinds of martial arts. This kind of creativity is simply amazing. Emperor Li's eyes couldn't help but shine. Every emperor had their own unique method of becoming an emperor. However, there were many Emperor Li in the Fortune God dynasty, which meant that there were some ways to become an emperor. Although they were not the same, there were some similarities. Even with his vast experience, he had never seen Yi Shiwen become an emperor with 3,000 kinds of martial arts. Without the protection of the outer shell, the sky-shaking turtle emperor was not a match at all. His physical body collapsed on the spot, and even his spirit was pulled out by Yi Shiwen. He was completely defeated. Stop! A loud shout came from the void in the distance. Chapter 31:22. With a loud roar, a figure appeared in the sky and transformed into a big hand. He wanted to grab the sky-shaking turtle emperor and rescue him. However, he was still too late. Originally, when the sky-shaking turtle emperor had cultivated to such a level, his spirit had long been integrated with his physical body and was inseparable. That was why he could recover with just one cell. However, his spirit had already been extracted by Yi Shiwen. After losing his spirit, his physical body also lost its luster. The spirit of the sky-shaking turtle emperor was caught in Yi Shiwen's hand, constantly struggling. Even if only his spirit was left, the sky-shaking turtle emperor was still extremely powerful. Ordinary quasi-emperors would be killed in one blow, and even peak quasi-emperors couldn't escape. However, at this time, in Yi Shiwen's hands, he was like a little chick. He had no power to fight back and couldn't do anything at all. The spirit of the sky-shaking turtle emperor constantly exuded a powerful aura, but it couldn't even break through Yi Shiwen's palm. Release his spirit. The figure emerged, but it was none other than Origin Returning Tyrant King. Origin Returning Tyrant King, save me! The sky-shaking turtle emperor hurriedly said. His eyes finally had a glimmer of hope amidst the despair. Just when he thought that he was going to die, the Origin Returning Overlord appeared. No matter how big the grudges between them were in the past, Origin returning Tyrant King was indeed the only hope to save him at this time. Origin returning Tyrant King looked at the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor with some disgust, but he was secretly happy. Now that the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor had been seriously injured to this extent, the gap between them would only widen in the future. It was impossible for the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor to cause any trouble. Even so, he couldn't let the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor die in Yi Shiwen's hands. Otherwise, the troubles in the future would be endless. You are Origin returning Tyrant King? Yi Shiwen saw that the other party's aura was extremely powerful. He was already at the peak of the 6th realm. He knew that there were a total of 4 peak 6th realm experts present. He had already seen Gung Jin Tiger Emperor and Li Emperor, and it was impossible for the Eternal Divine Emperor to save the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor who was a foreign expert. This was politically incorrect. Even if the Heavenly Tao sect and the Fortune God dynasty didn't get along well, no one dared to take the wrong side when it came to matters of the outer domain. No one knew what was going on in private, but in public, even the Eternal Saint Emperor couldn't afford to offend the public. In that case, there was only one possibility left, and that was Hegemon Gui Yuan. That's right. The primordial returning tyrant sovereign's eyes were cold as they shone with a dangerous glint. He didn't launch an attack immediately. It had only been a short time since he had decided to attack, but Yi Shiwen had already severely injured the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. Such a character wasn't easy to deal with. Let him go, otherwise, even if you escape to the Fortune God dynasty, don't even think of escaping, Hegemon Gui Yuan said coldly. Could it be that you foreign creatures want to kill your way into the Fortune Divine dynasty? A disdainful smile appeared on Yi Shiwen's face. It was fine if these words were meant to scare others, but if they wanted to scare him, they were worlds apart. At the same time, many emperors of the Fortune God dynasty couldn't help but sneer. In the outer domain, the foreign creatures were naturally tyrannical. Similarly, the Fortune God dynasty was the base camp of these emperors. If those foreign creatures dared to kill their way in, they would undoubtedly be courting death. This was just like how the emperors of the Fortune God dynasty didn't dare to truly enter the outer domain. Based on Yi Shiwen's strength, only a tycoon-level invincible existence could pose a threat to him. And if that kind of expert appeared, it would definitely alarm the invincible experts of the Fortune God dynasty. Therefore, it was impossible for Yi Shiwen to threaten him. Martial Emperor, do you still want to leave today? Hegemon Gui Yuan said indifferently. If I want to leave, who can stop me? Yi Shiwen said indifferently. His words were filled with endless confidence. Martial Emperor, I want you to return the thing you took from me last time with interest. An even colder voice came from behind Yi Shiwen. A majestic figure emerged. The golden heptachi on his body seemed to be able to cut the world into pieces. Who else could this person be but Tiger Emperor Gung Jin? The two of them, one in front and one behind, formed a pincer attack on Yi Shiwen. This martial emperor is in big trouble now. Whether it is Tiger Emperor Gung Jin or Hegemon Gui Yuan, they are the most terrifying and powerful existences. He has offended both of them at the same time. If it was just one of them, he might still be able to escape. But if both of them join forces, I'm afraid he won't even have the chance to escape. This person is also powerful. Others don't even have the chance to offend two great experts at the same time. Although they admired Yi Shiwen's ability to cause trouble under the siege of two great experts, no one would be optimistic about Yi Shiwen's chances. Emperor Li frowned slightly. He just looked at this scene coldly. It seemed that he was ready to make a move. Whether it was Tiger Emperor Gung Jin or Hegemon Gui Yuan, they were both on his kill list. No matter which one of them was killed, it would be a great contribution to him. He might even get a reward from the higher-up. At that time, it would be possible for him to enter the 7th realm. At his current level of cultivation, It was extremely difficult to rely on his own strength to break through to the seventh realm and become an influential little tycoon. For an emperor lord, there were also natural treasures or some special methods that could promote one's breakthrough, but these were in the hands of the fortune divine dynasty's higher echelons. If one didn't make great contributions to the dynasty, it would be very difficult to obtain them. This was the fundamental reason why he chased after Tiger Emperor Gungjin. It was not only because the Fortune God dynasty and the Outer Domain were old enemies, but also related to the possibility of him advancing further in the future. When it came to the Great Tao, there was no possibility of compromise. So the two of you have already joined forces? Yi Shiwen faced the situation where the two of them were about to attack him from the front and the back. He was not afraid at all. Yes, today, don't even think of escaping, Tiger Emperor Gungjin said coldly. His eyes were cold and ruthless. He hated Yi Shiwen to the core. If it weren't for Yi Shiwen, he would have already obtained the body of the Time Beast Emperor. The time fragment contained within was very important to him. If he could obtain it, he would definitely be able to enter the seventh realm. For an emperor, this was also a watershed. Whether one was strong or not depended on this. How could this not make him hate Yi Shiwen? Even Emperor Li, who had chased him before, was not as terrifying as Yi Shiwen in his heart. He could only be ranked second. Escape? Do I need to escape? Yi Shiwen sneered. Do you think I will be the same as last time? Humph. Do you think you have the slightest chance of winning against the two of us? As soon as the Tiger Emperor Gungjin's voice fell, he moved. In an instant, endless golden gung qi danced between heaven and earth. His entire body looked golden and dazzling. The endless golden gung qi turned into a golden gung robe, draping over his body. He was like an incomparably powerful ruler. Boom! He suddenly stomped his foot. In an instant, the sky collapsed and the earth caved in. There were brilliant lights and vibrant colors everywhere, and a terrifying wave swept out. Many emperors felt the sky change color. It was as if the surrounding spiritual energy and laws were suddenly sucked out and rushed towards the Tiger Emperor Gungjin. The peak of the sixth realm. This is the true strength of the peak of the sixth realm. Many people immediately swallowed a mouthful of saliva. It was different from the ordinary sixth realm. The peak of the sixth realm could already exert the power of this realm to a shocking level. It was not something that ordinary people could deal with. Yi Shiwen's expression did not change. The Tiger Emperor Gungjin in front of him was indeed terrifying. The golden Gungjin that he had faced previously was not even half of his true strength. After being seriously injured, the power that he could mobilize was also extremely limited. If it was before, he might not be a match for the Tiger Emperor Gungjin. However, things were different now. Yi Shiwen stretched out his arms and directly turned them into two terrifying punches. He did not devour the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. Instead, he only used his own power and evolved it to the extreme. Boom! In front of Yi Shiwen, where his fists were pointing, the Tiger Emperor Gungjin appeared in front of him as if it had long been coordinated. In other words, all of this had been calculated by Yi Shiwen. Bang! Yi Shiwen's fists directly collided with the Tiger Emperor Gungjin. In an instant, a loud sound of metal colliding splashed out and turned into a terrifying sound wave that swept in all directions. Both sides were like two huge planets that had fiercely collided with each other. That terrifying collision was accompanied by the astonishing collision of the divine kingdoms of both sides, setting off monstrous waves. Both sides' bodies were tyrannical to the extreme. Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form was specialized in dealing with all kinds of tyrannical physique. The Tiger Emperor Gungjin's body was completely composed of Gungjin, one of the hardest metals in the world. Both sides' bodies were tyrannical to the extreme. At this time, both sides collided with each other. There was not the slightest bit of fancy trick. The Tiger Emperor Gung Jin only felt a terrifying power coming from the opposite side. It directly shook his body. This kind of terrifying power was not inferior to his. How is this possible? How many years have passed? He was suddenly shocked. He vaguely remembered that Yi Shiwen had just made a breakthrough. At that time, even if he was in a seriously injured state, he could still fight to a draw with him. This was also the fundamental reason why he was so confident in the beginning. In his opinion, now that his injuries had recovered, it was impossible for Yi Shiwen to be a match for him. Everything would be a piece of cake. However, reality gave him a ruthless slap in the face. Yi Shiwen was far from being weak. While he was still in shock, Yi Shiwen's backhand punched again. Chapter 31-23. Yi Shiwen's movements were too fast. In comparison, the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was not prepared at all. He did not even think that Yi Shiwen would be able to fight him to a draw. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen shouldn't even be able to withstand his attack. However, things were completely beyond his expectations. Not only did Yi Shiwen easily block his attack, he even had the strength to counterattack. This completely subverted his worldview. Yi Shiwen's movements were too fast. His fist directly pierced through the sky. The laws of heaven and earth turned into endless chains, twining around his arm and increasing the power of his fist. Bang! The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor only had enough time to raise his hand to resist. His body was invincible, and his terrifying strength could make people tremble in fear. However, he was unexpectedly sent flying after being bombarded by Yi Shiwen's fist. Everyone didn't get a chance to react. All of this had happened too fast. Yi Shiwen had already pounced on the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor in an instant. He had launched another terrifying and outstanding attack. All kinds of blazing divine chains were fluttering around his body. They had transformed into a terrifying attack, and had shot towards the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. It seemed as if they wanted to pierce through his body. Bang! 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 After Yi Shiwen had seized the initiative, the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor soon realized the consequences of this. Yi Shiwen's combat experience could be said to be exceptionally rich. He didn't reveal even the slightest flaw. Every attack of his was capable of shattering the vault of heaven. Not only was every attack able to injure the Tiger Emperor, but it was also able to expand his advantage. It had only been a few breaths, and he had been completely suppressed by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's storm-like attacks made him unable to lift his head. He could only passively defend. He could not even counterattack. Many tyrannical sovereign emperors couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They swallowed a mouthful of saliva. It seemed as if they had seen a ghost. Yi Shiwen hadn't allowed the 7th Metal Tiger King to gain the upper hand during this period of time. In fact, the 7th Metal Tiger King hadn't even had the opportunity to reverse the situation. If they were in his shoes, they would have died a long time ago. Even if they were at the 6th level, they would have died as well. It was only because the Gung Metal Tiger King had an unparalleled physical body that made him more resilient. Otherwise, who knew how miserable he would have been? Yi Shiwen had thoroughly suppressed the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. This was even more shocking than when he had killed the Sky-Shaking Turtle Emperor. Although they were both level 6, how could an ordinary level 6 Sky-Shaking Turtle Emperor compare to a level 6 Pinnacle Gung Metal Tiger Emperor? Yi Shiwen's strength was too amazing. Even Emperor Li's eyes flashed with a trace of splendor. When Yi Shiwen had said that he wanted to form an alliance with him, he hadn't taken it seriously. After all, not everyone was qualified to form an alliance with him. However, Yi Shiwen had killed the Shaking Sky Turtle Emperor and suppressed the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor to prove that he was indeed qualified. Countless information about Yi Shiwen flashed through his mind. However, it was obvious that these information were all wrong. They didn't match Yi Shiwen's current amazing performance. After returning, he would definitely update these information. After this battle, no matter what, Yi Shiwen's name would shake the world. Previously, he had hoped to recruit Yi Shiwen as his subordinate. But now it seemed that it was absolutely impossible. Even if Yi Shiwen was a relatively equal subordinate, it would be an insult to an expert of this level. He was very clear about the consequences of insulting an expert. If someone dared to insult him, then he would definitely make that person regret being born into this world. On the other side, the Ghost Emperor and Tyrant Emperor's eyes were also filled with shock. No matter what information he had obtained, there was no mention of Yi Shiwen being so terrifying. Therefore, he didn't make any moves. He was stunned for such a long time. However, he could see that the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor had completely fallen into a disadvantageous position. Although his relationship with the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor wasn't good, it didn't prevent them from being allies. Without the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor's restraint, he would fall into the encirclement of the 3 top experts of the Fortune God dynasty. This was absolutely not what he wanted to see. On the point of killing Yi Shiwen, the Eternal Divine Emperor indeed had the same standpoint as them. In fact, it could even be said that they had a tacit understanding. However, on other issues they were completely hostile. As long as there was a chance, he believed that the Eternal Divine Emperor would absolutely not let him go. On the contrary, if there was a chance, he wouldn't mind taking the Eternal Divine Emperor's head. In this kind of situation, the existence of the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was even more important. Thinking of this, he didn't hesitate at all. He moved on the spot and was about to rush out and attack the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor from both sides. However, in just a moment, a figure blocked in front of him. With a somewhat sinister smile on his face, he said, "At this time, I think it's better that you don't go in and disturb the 2 of them. Emperor Li." Hegemen Gui Yuan's face became dignified because he was very clear that the person in front of him was not a small fry. He was a big shot of the Ministry of Justice of the Fortune Divine Dynasty. It was unknown how many Emperor-level creatures from the foreign domains had been killed by him. Compared to him, Yi Shiwen's reputation was simply insignificant. There was no comparison at all. Hegemen Gui Yuan, I think it's better that you don't act rashly. You can still live a little longer. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that you will live until tomorrow. Emperor Li smiled coldly. His words were filled with boundless confidence. There was nothing in the world that he was afraid of. He only had one goal, and that was to enter the 7th realm and become a small big shot. Anyone who obstructed his goal must die. In a sense, these people's goals were the same. However, they would become the biggest obstacles for each other to enter the 7th realm. In the end, Hegemen Gui Yuan didn't act rashly. After all, it was not a good idea to directly clash with Emperor Li at this time. In the distance, a group of people had just arrived at this battlefield. However, everyone's attention was on the battlefield. No one noticed the arrival of this group of people. Eternal Sage Emperor, should we intervene? This group of people was Eternal Sage Emperor's group. This group of people had just received the news of Yi Shiwen's appearance. They had already appeared here. Someone immediately asked. The Heavenly Taoism had wanted to kill Yi Shiwen for a long time. For this reason, even the big shots of the 6th realm were sent to lead the hunt. It had been a long time since anyone dared to provoke the Heavenly Taoism sect like this. No need. Just watch. We don't have to do it ourselves. When the time comes, we will let the 2 of them fight until both sides are injured. Wouldn't it be better for us to intervene? Eternal Sage Emperor was not anxious at all. His plan was to let both sides suffer. It would be best if Emperor Li and Hegemen Gui Yuan also participated. At that time, they would really be the fishermen who reaped the benefit. It could even be said that the original Hegemen Gui Yuan and Tiger Emperor Gung Jin also had the same idea. They wanted Eternal Sage Emperor to take the lead in fighting Yi Shiwen. At that time, they could reap the benefit. Unfortunately, because of the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor's attack, their plan fell short of success. Especially Hegemon Guiyuan, it was impossible for him to watch the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor die tragically. Otherwise, even if he could return, he would not have a good ending in the end. The biggest mistake was that they had underestimated Yi Shiwen's strength. They thought that they could easily defeat or even kill Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen would erupt with such amazing combat power and terrifying strength. This was the fundamental reason why they had to take the lead in the end. In the battlefield, Yi Shiwen's advantage was getting bigger and bigger. He did not have to worry about letting go of opportunities because of his experience in battles. He was just constantly increasing his advantage. If the Tiger Emperor Gung Jin's physical body was not terrifyingly strong, he would have been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. Even so, the Tiger Emperor Gung Jin was in a very difficult situation. He couldn't organize any of his defenses. All his defenses would be broken by Yi Shiwen's attack the moment they were organized. The Tao that he was good at didn't have any advantage in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was good at everything that he was good at. In fact, Yi Shiwen was even stronger than him. In fact, Yi Shiwen was also good at things that he wasn't good at. Yi Shiwen's 3000 martial Tao seemed unrealistic at first. The 3000 martial Tao contained too many things. Under normal circumstances, one would be able to become an emperor if they were proficient in one of the 3000 martial Tao. Not to mention, they would be able to cultivate the 3000 martial Tao to an extremely profound realm. This made Yi Shiwen seem as if he had no weaknesses. No matter what kind of strong enemy he encountered, he could restrain, suppress, and even kill them. Bang! There was a huge roar, and the overturning the sky seal directly fell down and smashed on the Tiger Emperor Gung Jin's head. The Tiger Emperor Gung Jin staggered on the spot. The Tiger Emperor Gung Jin's head was smashed, and his body staggered forward. Finally, he couldn't hold on any longer, and fell heavily on the ground. The entire ground was smashed, and a huge crack appeared. Roar! The Tiger Emperor Gung Jin didn't care about his dignity since he had been forced into such a situation. He immediately transformed into his terrifying body. It was a terrifying tiger that stood between the heaven and the earth. This tiger's entire body was golden in color. His body was covered with metallic veined patterns. Each veined pattern was engraved with a kind of Tao law. It possessed a dreadful power that ordinary people couldn't even imagine. It could be said that his body was the perfect embodiment of the Tao. He was the most terrifying existence in this world. Bang! The overturning heaven strike smashed onto his body. Suddenly, a few cracks appeared on his golden body. He had resisted Yi Shiwen's attack. He had forcibly suppressed his injuries, and had finally seized back the initiative of the battle. The situation had suddenly changed. Chapter 31-24. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor forcefully took one of Yi Shiwen's moves. Only then did he manage to reverse the situation. He was also a battle-hardened man. He naturally knew that if he continued to be beaten, a small injury would turn into a big one. At that time, he would truly die without a burial place. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor bit off the bloodstain and transformed back into his human form. He then looked at Yi Shiwen indifferently. He wouldn't treat Yi Shiwen as an ordinary person this time. After all, even a little mistake could lead to a real defeat in a battle of this level. It could be said that a slight mistake could lead to a huge difference. A battle between experts only took a moment. Yi Shiwen's face revealed a slight look of disappointment as he failed to kill the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor in one fell swoop. However, this disappointment only lasted for a moment. This was because he knew that it was very difficult to kill someone like the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. The current situation was too chaotic. It was not impossible to kill him in one fell swoop, but it would be difficult to do so in a short period of time. However, Yi Shiwen was not worried. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor's body was circulating the Gung Metal Divine Power. He was constantly healing himself. A complex look flashed in his eyes. Everyone could not help but sigh in relief. The series of battles just now had dazzled everyone. They did not even dare to blink their eyes. They might have missed the most important battle in a short period of time. They were highly focused. Now they finally had a chance to breathe. The entire battlefield was filled with all kinds of breathing sounds. These were all extremely terrifying expert. Their breaths were like monstrous waves that were surging endlessly. Yi Shiwen slightly sneered. After a short period of calm, the battle broke out again. It was Tiger Emperor Gung Jin who had made his move. He was no longer as carefree and at ease as he had been a moment ago. This was because he had already seen that Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan had been blocked by Emperor Li. Therefore, he had no one to rely on. He could only rely on himself. However, the person in front of him was definitely not someone easy to deal with. In an instant, countless Gung Metal Chi severed the space and time. Everyone could clearly see the rupture of time. The fragments of time exploded at his fingertip. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was already going all out at this time. Golden Gung Chi burst out of him one after another, and transformed into a blazing waterfall. It seemed as if the Milky Way had fallen from the ninth heaven, and was about to strike Yi Shiwen to death. The power of each Gung Metal Chi was enormous to the extreme. It could even easily injure an ordinary emperor. Obviously, he didn't want to delay for too long. He wanted to deal with Yi Shiwen in the shortest time possible. One must know that the Pan-Heavenly Palace would soon appear according to his calculations. So, he didn't want to delay the battle until then. Everyone saw that, of course, including Yi Shiwen. Everyone looked at so many golden heptachi flying in the air. How could Yi Shiwen block these attacks so easily? Yi Shiwen sneered. It's no use. You, Gung Ji Metal King, you. Yi Shiwen was not afraid at all. Astride, not only did not dodge, on the contrary, but also directly rushed up, condensed into a sword, directly toward the golden heptachi that was rushing over. Clang! A huge explosion sound was heard, as if two huge metals had collided together. Although the golden Gung Chi was not as hard as the golden Tiger Emperor itself, but it was definitely one of the hardest divine objects. However, under the attack of Yi Shiwen's finger sword, it loudly exploded. It was as if it was unable to withstand this terrifying force and instantly exploded. It was no longer able to form a real attack. Bang! 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 Again and again, Yi Shiwen's figure was like a flying immortal, his feet stepping out of the mysterious steps, and every time these golden heptachi were about to attack his body, it was blown up by his finger. Yi Shiwen dispersed the golden Gung Chi while chasing in the direction of the Tiger Emperor. All the sovereign emperors on the battlefield remained silent. After a long time, someone finally spoke. A battle at the peak of the sixth realm. Both the Golden Tiger Emperor and Yi Shiwen have touched that level. I'm afraid the seventh realm is just around the corner. It's terrifying. The Golden Hepta origin of the Golden Hepta Tiger Emperor is too pure. It is so pure that it is not afraid of any existence. No matter what kind of existence the other party is, it can be completely annihilated. If it were us, I'm afraid we would suffer a great loss, and even die in his hands. Yi Shiwen's means are also heaven-defying. Just looking at his physical cultivation, I'm afraid he is not inferior to the Golden Tiger Emperor. He might even be stronger. He is too strong. This was the evaluation of the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor and Yi Shiwen by many sovereign emperors. One could well imagine how amazing Yi Shiwen and the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor were in their eyes. In fact, they had already surpassed the limits of their imagination. In the distance, the Eternal Sage Emperor and the others' faces were also very ugly. They did not expect Yi Shiwen to be this strong. At this moment, they only had one feeling in their hearts. Those guys who collected information grew up eating dog **t. They could even make such an obvious mistake. Especially the sovereign emperors behind the eternal sage emperor, their faces were even uglier. If they did not know this and rushed forward rashly, they would be beaten up in minutes, and then taught a lesson by Yi Shiwen. It was incomparably terrifying just thinking about it. This Yi Shiwen must die. The eternal sage emperor's expression was even more dignified. He is already so difficult to deal with now. If he is allowed to grow, it will be terrible. I'm afraid even we can't keep him in check by then. Yi Shiwen's powerful strength not only did not make him give up, but on the contrary, it made the killing intent in his heart heavier. Meanwhile, Yi Shiwen had already arrived in front of the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor, and a fierce battle was about to unfold. The Golden Tiger Emperor was not unprepared. In an instant, a long river formed by the Golden Gung Chi was produced. At first, it flowed slowly, but then it began to flow rapidly. In an instant, it collapsed and roared, blasting towards Yi Shiwen. A little bit of golden heptachi was enough to split the heavens and the earth, not to mention such a terrifying golden hepta river. Not only did it contain this most solid divine object of heaven and earth, but there were also endless laws condensed in it. In an instant it covered the sky and the earth, and its attack power reached the strongest. Yi Shiwen, die. Yi Shiwen did not speak. His big hand turned towards the void, and suddenly, the Avicii sword appeared in his hand. The Avicii sword directly slashed towards the long river of golden Gung Chi. The sword Chi turned into a huge Avicii hell in the sky, flying high in the sky, suppressing the world. Boom! The long river of golden Gung Chi directly crashed into the Avicii hell. The Golden Tiger Emperor's expression was dignified. Golden rays of light flickered all over his body. His whole body seemed to be cast from gold. He pinched a seal in his hand, and that terrifying long river of golden Gung Chi was his arm. It was his weapon, and it crashed towards the Avicii hell. He wanted to use the long river of golden Gung Chi to destroy the Avicii hell. He wanted to use the long river of golden Gung Chi to pierce through the world and kill his way to victory. These methods had already involved his origin. He was already fighting with his life on the line. Endless collisions unfolded in the sky. The golden Gung Chi and the sword Chi of the Avicii sword devoured each other. The two peerless powerhouses collided in the sky. Golden Tiger Emperor, you think you can go against me? Yi Shiwen shouted. He directly let go of the Avicii sword, and let the Golden Tiger Emperor crush him. Yi Shiwen took a big stride forward, and rushed into the battlefield where both sides were colliding. These terrifying shock waves that could destroy heaven and earth, and who knew how many galaxies had been destroyed, all rushed towards his body. However, they couldn't break his defense. Yi Shiwen's body emitted the power of time. It was like a divine kingdom of time, and it protected him. There was nothing in this world that could exist forever. Only time could exist forever. No matter what kind of attack it was, it could not destroy this terrifying power of time. Yi Shiwen spread his hands. It seemed as if a Kuan Ping had spread its wings. He tore these shockwaves apart, and once again rushed towards the Golden Tiger Emperor. Take my fist. Yi Shiwen's fist blasted out. It was the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. The power of the world revolved violently, and then condensed into the fist momentum. Then, it bombarded the body of the Golden Tiger Emperor. Roar! The Golden Tiger Emperor roared. He transformed into his original body, and opened his big mouth. It seemed as if he wanted to swallow Yi Shiwen's fist momentum into his stomach. Yi Shiwen's fist momentum seemed to have entered a whole new world. This was not a reckless move. It was a kind of magical power. It could swallow everything into its stomach, and then thoroughly refine it. It was an innate magical power that was born when he transformed into his tiger form. It was extremely terrifying. It could almost be said that there was nothing in the world that it could not swallow. Yi Shiwen, come again! The Golden Tiger Emperor shouted at Yi Shiwen. Do you think it is so easy to swallow my things? Yi Shiwen roared and pinched a seal. Suddenly, a terrifying power seemed to be born in the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor's stomach. It grew bigger and bigger until the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor's stomach couldn't hold it anymore. Boom! A loud explosion sounded, and the entire Golden Tiger Emperor exploded. It seemed as if it had turned into a bloody mist. The fist intention of Yi Shiwen's 6 paths of reincarnation fist had exploded in his stomach. Even the Golden Tiger Emperor could not resist it. Even the golden body could not stop the explosion from inside. Good opportunity! Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up. He stepped forward and pinched the overturning sky seal in his hand. It transformed into an ancient sacred mountain and directly smashed down. I will kill you in one blow, and at this time, a terrifying attack pierced through the sky and went straight towards Yi Shiwen's face. Another terrifying existence finally couldn't help but attack. Chapter 31-25. Just as Yi Shiwen was about to kill the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor with a single strike, another terrifying existence finally made a move. A huge hand pierced through the sky and flew directly towards Yi Shiwen. This huge hand carried a terrifying power as it slammed down from the sky. It clearly had an imposing aura that wanted to kill Yi Shiwen on the spot. Obviously, he had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. His attack at this time could be said to be just right. Ordinary people simply couldn't dodge this attack, and could only take it head-on. Humph! Yi Shiwen only snorted coldly. He didn't make any unnecessary movement. He just withdrew his attack and blasted out a backhand punch. Boom! In an instant, the heaven and earth shook violently. The fist and the palm collided in the void on the spot. That terrifying power almost broke the heaven and earth. It was as if a single strike had broken the pillars of the heaven and earth. All kinds of primal chaos divine lights wantonly and the Emperor's law swept out at an astonishing speed. Yi Shiwen directly blocked this attack. Although this attack wasn't able to seriously injure him, Yi Shiwen wasn't able to kill the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor completely because of this. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor had escaped. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor couldn't help but gasp for breath. The terrifying shock wave formed by the collision between Yi Shiwen and that huge hand had directly hit his body. The astral wind was biting cold, but he only felt a chill down his spine. He had escaped this disaster. If no one had made a move just now, perhaps he would have died at Yi Shiwen's hands. There was a bit of surprise in his eyes. He really didn't expect Yi Shiwen to have such strength. Even he had almost fallen into Yi Shiwen's trap. Yi Shiwen put his hands behind his back. His eyes burst out with a terrifying light. He said coldly, "You still don't want to come out? Do you want me to invite you?" Everyone's eyes followed Yi Shiwen's words, and quickly looked into the distance. The fight between these two people had already shocked everyone. It was definitely a collision between the top experts, and now someone had actually dared to intervene in their fight. Humph! A cold snort was heard. Then, a figure quickly swept over. When everyone saw the appearance of this person, they suddenly felt that it was both within their expectations and unexpected. It was the Eternal Saint Emperor. Many people felt as if their brains had short-circuited. Although they had guessed that the Eternal Divine Emperor wouldn't let Yi Shiwen off, they hadn't expected that he would choose to attack at this time. Everyone knew that with the enmity between the Fortune God dynasty and the foreign domains, only death awaited them if they joined hands. This was a matter of great righteousness, so no one dared to violate the taboo. It really is you. After watching for so long, you finally can't help but make a move? Yi Shiwen sneered. He wasn't surprised at all. The existence of the Eternal Sage Sovereign was already within his expectations. However, He hadn't expected the eternal divine king to make a move at this time. You actually colluded with creatures from the outer realm. Even if you go out today, you won't be able to escape death. What could it be that you want to defect to the outer realm like him? Yi Shiwen sneered and said. On the other side, Emperor Li's expression was a little complicated, a little playful, and a little hateful. Eternal Divine King, I think you should know what kind of crime it is to collude with creatures from the outer realm, Emperor Li said coldly. His eyes were shining, and then he felt a headache, because he realized that this might be a meritorious deed. However, if Tiger Emperor Gung Jin and Heavenly Emperor Gui Yuan were counted, then the problem would be troublesome. Even his original plan to kill and capture Tiger Emperor Gung Jin might be ruined. His heart was filled with hatred. Colluding with creatures from the outer realm? When did you see me colluding with creatures from the outer realm? Eternal Divine King said unyieldingly. This person is a wanted criminal of my heavenly Taoism. I'm just arresting a wanted criminal of my heavenly Taoism. What does it have to do with others? Suddenly, many people felt like spitting saliva. Even if everyone knew that the Eternal Divine King had reached a tacit agreement with these creatures from the outer realm to eliminate Yi Shiwen, they had no evidence. Which one of these people wasn't smart? Naturally, they wouldn't leave any evidence behind. As long as he refused to admit it, who could do anything to him? One must know that he was at the peak of the sixth realm. In the future, he would have the opportunity to enter the seventh realm. With his cultivation, as long as he didn't admit it, then who could force him? It's wonderful, wonderful! Yi Shiwen chuckled. It's said that heavenly Taoism has always been unscrupulous. I've only heard of it before, but now I've seen it for myself. How dare you collude with creatures from the outer realm? Eternal Divine King's expression became even more indifferent. Indistinctly, there was a hint of malevolence. He knew that he couldn't hide it from others. However, there was no evidence for this matter. As long as he didn't admit it, who could do anything to him? Sweet words are stingy. No matter how eloquent you are, it's useless. Eternal Divine King was determined not to give him a chance to speak again. He immediately attacked. In an instant, all kinds of light flooded the universe. No one could see clearly what was happening between the heavens and the earth. Yi Shiwen instantly felt a terrifying coercion pressing down on his body. Sinner, quickly bow your head and admit your guilt. A cold and stern voice came from afar and directly reached his ears. This made Yi Shiwen feel a sense of guilt in his heart. It was as if he had committed a heinous crime. A force directly blasted into his heart. Break for me! Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. His eyes suddenly opened and turned into a double pupil. He directly saw through everything in front of him. He saw that it was none other than Eternal Divine King who was shouting at him. Hiss! An emperor finally woke up from this bewitching force. He couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. The light emitted by Eternal Divine King seemed to have an unimaginable temptation. It could bewitch people's minds and make them completely obey the control of heavenly Taoism. Such a powerful method. Even an emperor might fall into his trap if he's not careful. I've only heard about it before. I've never seen it before. It's so powerful. Isn't it very powerful? It is said that heavenly Taoism used this method to take in many foreign creatures as protectors. It can be said to be a lotus flower with words. It's an amazing method. Immediately, an emperor said hatefully. He almost fell into the trap just now. If Eternal Divine King's target wasn't Yi Shiwen and not him, he might have suffered a big loss this time. How could he not hate? Seeing that Yi Shiwen had easily broken free from his mind control, even the Eternal Divine Emperor was a little surprised. Although he knew that for an Emperor King of Yi Shiwen's level, the bewitchment under normal conditions could be said to be of little use, it was almost useless. This made him completely vigilant. This man in front of him must not be underestimated. You want to bewitch me and control me with such insignificant skills. Yi Shiwen smiled indifferently. His double pupil was incomparably cold. The double pupil magical ability itself had the ability to see through falsehood. In addition, he had the enlightening mind ancient tree. It could even be said that this method was useless against him. If this is all you have, then you will die together with Shura Divine Emperor. As soon as Yi Shiwen's voice fell, the sky was filled with brilliance under his feet. It was as if all the essence of the world had been integrated into it. The demonic wings behind him suddenly spread out. It was like the wings of the sky, and he rushed out on the spot. Yi Shiwen's body brought the sky full of brilliance. It was like a celestial waterfall falling from the ninth heaven. He rushed towards Eternal Divine King. The Eternal Saint Emperor let out a long howl and punched out as well. Boom! Yi Shiwen's fist and Eternal Divine King's fist collided fiercely. The world shook violently, turned into endless chaos, and drowned everything. Thump, thump, thump. Eternal Divine King retreated a few steps. He was barely able to remove the terrifying huge force on his body. Such great power! A look of astonishment flashed in the eyes of the Eternal Divine Emperor. No one could understand how dreadful Yi Shiwen's attack was if they didn't fight him personally. He could pierce through a world with one strike. He could destroy a galaxy with one strike. In the same realm, he had never seen anyone more terrifying than Yi Shiwen. No wonder the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor was beaten like a dead dog by Yi Shiwen. It wasn't just because Yi Shiwen had seized the initiative. In fact, his true strength was inferior to Yi Shiwen's. Since you want to participate, then prepare to die. While he was still in shock, Yi Shiwen had already rushed in front of him in an instant. An even more terrifying collision broke out. The fists of both sides fiercely collided again. Bang! Endless blood mist sprayed out. The muscles on Eternal Divine King's arm had burst open. The muscles on his body could no longer withstand the terrifying bombardment of Yi Shiwen's monstrous strength, and directly burst open. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen did not move at all. The counterattack just now was as if it was nothing to him. How can he be so strong? Many people's eyes widened as if they had seen a ghost. First, it was the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor, and then the Eternal Divine King. Both of them were at the peak of the sixth realm. They were famous emperors, but they had suffered a great loss in Yi Shiwen's hands. Die! At this time, another tiger's roar came. The Gung Jin Tiger Emperor leaped up and rushed towards Yi Shiwen again. Just as Eternal Divine King thought, both sides did not need to communicate with word. They could immediately understand each other's intentions. No matter how much hatred they had, it was nothing in front of killing Yi Shiwen. The killing intent in his heart became stronger. At this level, Yi Shiwen was no match for him in a one-on-one fight. He had to join forces. You came just in time. I will kill you together. Chapter 31-26. Yi Shiwen did not have the slightest fear in the face of the joint attack of two unparalleled experts of the peak of the sixth realm. The cold killing intent on his face was terrifying. Yi Shiwen arrived in front of the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor like a dragon rising and a phoenix falling. He then launched a peerless attack. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Overturning the heavens seal. 3,000 martial arts. All kinds of terrifying attacks turned into ripples of the Great Way and spread out to attack. Yi Shiwen did not take a defensive stance in the face of the two experts. On the contrary, he took the offensive and directly attacked in front of them. You do have some skills. Emperor Li's eyes sparkled. With his pride, it was almost impossible for him to truly acknowledge someone. Even the giants of the seventh realm, in his eyes, had only cultivated for a longer period of time. It did not mean that he would not be able to stand in the same position in the future. However, Yi Shiwen's amazing combat power made him look at him in a different light. Yi Shiwen had suppressed two strong enemies in the same realm. It was simply shocking. Not far in front of him, Hegemon Guiyuan was already ready to make a move. However, there was no way for him to get involved because Emperor Li's divine thoughts had not left his body for a moment. These were not within his expectations. At this time, they had secretly joined forces with the Eternal Saint Emperor. Moreover, he didn't know what kind of agreement Emperor Li had reached with Yi Shiwen. Emperor Li was secretly standing on his side, and firmly holding him back. Otherwise, he didn't believe that Yi Shiwen could contend against the three of them at the same time if the three of them joined forces. Emperor Li. Hegemon Guiyuan's expression became colder and colder. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Emperor Li. However, Emperor Li's face showed a somewhat disdainful smile. Hegemon Guiyuan, you can scare others, but do you think you can scare me? You are originally my prey. If it was not for the Pantheon Palace that is about to appear, none of you will be able to escape. Emperor Li did not give in to the threat of Hegemon Guiyuan. Perhaps in his opinion, Hegemon Guiyuan and the others were just moving merit. You? Hegemon Guiyuan did not expect Emperor Li to be so stubborn. Normally it would be fine. However, at this critical moment, Emperor Li was standing in front of him. Moreover, it just so happened that he was clearly aware of how formidable and terrifying Emperor Li was. If Emperor Li was determined to stop him, then he would probably be unable to accomplish anything in this encirclement. Encircle him? Do you still think you can encircle him? Now, it is hard to say who is encircling who. Emperor Li said with a cold smile. At this time, Yi Shiwen had completely taken the initiative in the field. Although he was alone, it looked like he was chasing two people by himself. He displayed all kinds of magical powers and secret techniques to the extreme. His whole body was golden, as if it was cast in gold. It was like the rebirth of a matchless god of war. Moreover, along with the passage of time, his battles grew more and more carefree, and he was even able to comprehend numerous grand daos that ordinary people didn't even dare to imagine as he fought. The Genjin Tiger Emperor and the Eternal Divine Emperor could clearly feel this. They could faintly feel that Yi Shiwen was getting stronger. Although this feeling wasn't obvious, it was shocking enough for an imperial monarch who had to take thousands or even tens of thousands of years to make progress. In particular, Yi Shiwen's physical body was too strong. Relying on the fact that his body was cast in Genjin, the Genjin Tiger Emperor could barely compete with Yi Shiwen. On the other hand, the Eternal Divine Emperor did not dare to confront Yi Shiwen head-on. He suffered too much. After several collisions, half of his body was almost shattered by Yi Shiwen. Even the recovery ability of an Emperor could not keep up with the speed of Yi Shiwen's attack. Moreover, Yi Shiwen's attacks contained many traces of the Grand Daos that were difficult to erase. It would take a lot of time to remove these traces of the Grand Daos. This further delayed their recovery. Usually, such injuries were not a big deal. However, at this time, in the battle of the Emperor level, it was almost a fatal problem. Roar! The Genjin Tiger Emperor roared and transformed into endless Genjin Qi. It was dazzling. Amazing light erupted from his body and turned into the ripples of the Grand Daos that attacked Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen slapped down and directly dispersed the Genjin Qi on the spot. At this time, the Eternal Divine Emperor directly rushed in front of Yi Shiwen and blasted down. This attack used all of his strength. Even the Divine Kingdom of Time around Yi Shiwen's time robe was penetrated. The attack directly hit in front of Yi Shiwen. Although both sides had never cooperated before, it could be said that the minds of the powerhouses who had reached this stage were connected if they wanted to cooperate. Both sides did not need to communicate verbally. They could completely cooperate. The Genjin Tiger Emperor attracted Yi Shiwen's attention. The real killer move was here with the Eternal Divine Emperor. The surface of Yi Shiwen's body was no longer that green robe. The time robe directly emerged. The eternal divine emperor's attack directly bombarded the time robe and instantly disappeared without a trace. Under normal circumstances, the attack of the emperor level could even last forever. The only thing that could wear out the attack of the emperor was time. At the crucial moment, Yi Shiwen used the power of time. Overturning the sky seal, Yi Shiwen shouted. He did not care about the attack of the eternal divine emperor. He just backhanded the overturning the sky seal on the spot and hit the eternal divine emperor. Bang! The eternal divine emperor was smashed to the ground on the spot. The ground within thousands of miles evaporated. It was evaporated under the collision of a huge force. However, the eyes of the eternal divine emperor still had a look of unwillingness and absurdity. It was as if he had seen the most unbelievable thing. What a joke! What did he just see? A Taoist robe made completely of time fragments. Who could break such a Taoist robe? There was more than one Taoist robe on Yi Shiwen's body. It was both offensive and defensive. This was the most terrifying thing. In the Fortune Divine Dynasty, this was extremely rare. Although there were many emperors in the Fortune Divine Dynasty, many emperors were considered to be organized. It was very rare for the Taoist tools to be lost. Even if there were extra Taoist tools, it was impossible for them to be like Yi Shiwen and concentrate all the Taoist tools on him. Moreover, even among the many Taoist tools, the time robe was still a monster among monsters. Time fragments were difficult to find. Even among the creatures like the time beast that were born with the power of time, only the emperor-level time beast had condensed relatively large time fragments. The time fragments in the body of the time beast emperor could only be used to repair the time robe. One could imagine how many time fragments the Time Lord used to refine the time robe. Even Yi Shiwen himself had some doubts about this. The origin of the Time Lord was quite extraordinary. It wasn't what ordinary people thought it was. It was just that the Time Lord appeared suddenly, and the time he shone was too short. Almost not long after he appeared, he died under the siege of many emperors of the heavenly clan. Moreover, that era was too long ago. Many things were only passed down by word of mouth. Even the ancient books didn't record it. Therefore, for many things, Yi Shiwen could only rely on his own speculation. He couldn't really know why. Therefore, the eternal divine emperor had such an absurd expression. He was simply about to kneel. What level of attack was needed to break Yi Shiwen's defense? Not only him, but even many emperors had the same feeling at this time. Previously, they only thought that Yi Shiwen only cultivated the power of time and didn't think so much. However, now, they were completely shocked by Yi Shiwen's wealth. Some people already knew that Yi Shiwen came from a different world. They began to speculate. Could it be that the emperor from a different world was so rich? Obviously, it was not possible. Otherwise, all the emperor from a different world would become the target of everyone's attention. Yi Shiwen didn't care about their thoughts. After the overturning sky seal knocked the eternal divine emperor down to the mortal world, he immediately chased after the eternal divine emperor. Die! The Avicii sword appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. He slashed with the sword, and the sword aura turned into Avicii hell. The eternal divine emperor didn't have time to resist. He was directly hit by Yi Shiwen's sword. The sword light directly split him into two halves. He was instantly injured. The emperor's recovery ability was indeed extraordinary. However, he couldn't withstand such a terrifying injury. It was almost one sword that turned his tens of thousands of years of bitter cultivation into ashes. On the other side, the gung-metal tiger emperor paused for a moment and rushed forward. There was a somewhat tragic expression in the fierce wind. Many people doubted whether they saw it wrong. Two emperors of the peak of the sixth realm joined forces to attack Yi Shiwen. There was a kind of grief and indignation. If this kind of situation appeared on Yi Shiwen, it couldn't be more normal. However, the situation was completely reversed now. It simply made them feel absurd. Facing the gung metal tiger emperor, Yi Shiwen just used the overturning sky seal to slap him. Bang! The gung metal tiger emperor was directly slapped. His huge body that had transformed into its original body was suddenly sent flying. He couldn't resist at all. The surface of his body was already densely covered with all kinds of cracks. It wasn't just Yi Shiwen's attack. The previous consecutive battles had also caused cracks to appear all over his body. He looked extremely ferocious and terrifying. Hiss, I must have seen it wrong. How can this be? This Yi Shiwen is simply invincible. How can he be so powerful? Doesn't that mean that we have no hope? With such a matchless villain here, the hope isn't great even if we attack. Everyone was discussing. At this moment, there was a violent fluctuation in the sky. Endless auspicious colors spread out, and immortal light sprinkled on the world. A huge monster slowly emerged in the void. Chapter 31:27. All the aura between the heavens and the earth seemed to be seized by this colossus. Everything in the entire world boiled the moment this colossus appeared. Many emperors could sense that the aura between the heavens and the earth was drawn and the laws were boiling. Everyone shifted their attention from the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor and the Eternal Divine Emperor. Even Yi Shiwen, who had been suppressing the two of them, was attracted by this sudden turn of events. Above their heads, an incomparably huge group of palaces gradually appeared. Everyone immediately guessed the origin of this group of palaces. Pan-Tian Palace! Someone cried out in surprise. Everyone held their breath. They knew very well that the reason for so many days of killing was the Pan-Heavenly Palace. The Pan-Tian Palace gradually appeared in the sky. It seemed to be contending with some terrifying power. The speed of its appearance was very slow. Everyone could only see its silhouette in the endless void. No, this Pan-Tian Palace is in a different plane. Yi Shiwen's eyes could see through all illusions. He instantly saw that the Pan-Tian Palace seemed to have appeared in the void. In fact, it was still in a different plane far away. It seemed that there was a terrifying power in the world of the Pan-Tian Palace that was preventing the Pan-Tian Palace from reappearing. The Pan-Tian Palace was contending with this terrifying power. It wanted to break free from this terrifying power. Is there something hidden here that we don't know? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. In his mind, countless thoughts suddenly exploded. Countless calculations emerged. It was just that the information he could get at present was too little. Therefore, there was no way to determine it. And at this moment, dozens of figures directly jumped out of the void and went directly to the Pan-Tian Palace in the different plane. At the same time, there were bursts of terrifying attacks. The traces of the Great Way were constantly appearing and bombarding the plane's barrier. They wanted to release the Pan-Tian Palace. Yi Shiwen was able to see through it, but they were able to see through it very quickly. So, they decided to help the Pan-Heavenly Palace. They didn't care too much about it. After all, they had to seize the Pan-Heavenly Palace first. An emperor's attack was earth-shattering. Destroying a world was just a piece of cake. Not to mention the joint attack of so many emperor-level existences. The power of their joint attack directly broke the space barrier. The entire space was pierced through and a huge hole was formed. The Pan-Tian Palace finally appeared in this world. Emperor Li and Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan, who were still watching, leaped up almost immediately. They could no longer be bothered to monitor each other. They stepped on a ray of light and rushed to the front of the Pan-Tian Palace in an instant. Yi Shiwen suddenly fell into a dilemma. If he continued to stay, he might lose the treasure. If he rushed to the Pan-Tian Palace, he would have to let the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor and the Eternal Divine Emperor go. Such a dilemma only lasted for a moment. Yi Shiwen immediately made a decision. He looked at them coldly. Then, the demon wings behind him spread out and he flew out instantly. In his mind, whether it was the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor or the Eternal Divine Emperor, there was no need to worry about them. He was still improving at an amazing speed. The next time they met, it would be just a piece of cake to kill them. Seeing Yi Shiwen leave with a sneer, the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor and the Eternal Divine Emperor finally breathed a sigh of relief. Yi Shiwen's attack just now almost made them think that they were going to die here. Even now, they still felt like they had survived a disaster. They had never thought that someone would be able to suppress them, or even kill them, at the same level as them. They always felt that they were the strongest. However, Yi Shiwen's performance today had completely destroyed their worldview. There was really someone in the same realm who could be so tyrannical. It was so strong that it was unreasonable. The two looked at each other and saw a bit of horror in each other's eyes. Soon, other emperors from their respective camps flew over and took the two away. They were also on guard against each other along the way. After all, they belonged to different camps. Although they had temporarily joined forces because of Yi Shiwen, they were still different. If they were really plotted against, then they would really have no place to cry even if they cried. I must kill him. The Gung Jin Tiger Emperor gritted his teeth. He was born in a noble family. He had been guided by a famous teacher since he was young. So, he had never felt the feeling of failure. Yi Shiwen had seized the body of the Time Beast Emperor in front of him. It was already a kind of setback for him. Not to mention that he had suffered a crushing defeat in the hands of Yi Shiwen. For him, this was tantamount to a loud slap in the face. If he couldn't kill Yi Shiwen, then he would never be able to wash away his shame in this life. On the other side, the Eternal Divine Emperor also let out the same roar. His situation was similar to the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor. He was an outstanding genius since he was young. In the end, he defeated many opponents and successfully became an emperor. He was also an outstanding person among everyone. An ordinary person couldn't be compared to him. Now, he had suffered a big loss in the hands of Yi Shiwen. From the hunter, he had become the prey. If he didn't find a way to take revenge, he wouldn't be able to stand in front of others in the future. Especially when he was full of confidence at the beginning. Now it seemed that it was a kind of silent mockery. Damn guy, I will never let him go. At this time, Yi Shiwen naturally didn't know that the two had sworn to kill him. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care much. They were just a bunch of defeated opponents. The most urgent thing now was to find a way to get the Pan-Heavenly Palace. Although the Pan-Heavenly Palace had just appeared, it was almost like it was integrated with the world. If he could get it, he would almost be in an invincible position. Yi Shiwen's movements were extremely fast. Especially after the demon wings were fully unfolded, his speed soared to the limit. Although he wasn't the first to fly to the Pan-Heavenly Palace, he had almost caught up to the front of the crowd in an instant. He directly caught up with Emperor Li and the returning Principal Emperor. Emperor Li and the returning Principal Emperor saw that Yi Shiwen had caught up so quickly. Suddenly, it was as if they had seen a ghost. It was completely unexpected. He acts decisively and without hesitation. He said that he would let go of the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor and the Eternal Divine Emperor. At the same time, his movement technique is peerless. He deserves long-term attention. At this time, Emperor Li instantly had an evaluation of Yi Shiwen in his heart. Yi Shiwen's demon wings movement technique had also scared him. He was almost scared to death. He had already used his full speed, but Yi Shiwen had still caught up from behind. However, this was only a fleeting thought, because they had almost immediately arrived in front of the Pan-Heavenly Palace. Through the world hole formed by the terrifying attacks of the crowd, the Pan-Heavenly Palace was destroyed. At this moment, everyone finally realized that their initial guess was right. The Pan-Heavenly Palace was indeed restricted by something. That was why it had not appeared in the world for countless years. It was only now that it finally appeared. Above the huge palace complex of the Pan-Heavenly Palace, divine order chains came from the depths of the endless void and directly inserted into the Pan-Heavenly Palace. Each of these divine order chains was dozens of feet thick. Countless such divine order chains firmly bound the Pan-Heavenly Palace in place. At the same time, all of its divine power was sealed. Therefore, the Pan-Heavenly Palace could only move forward inch by inch. It was unable to move freely. Who left behind this trick? Someone couldn't help but ask. These divine order chains were obviously extraordinary. Although many emperors could also condense such divine order chains in their bodies, the Pan-Heavenly Palace was the personal instrument of the Pantheon Emperor in the past. Its quality was even more terrifying than a Taoist instrument. Unexpectedly, someone could only use divine order chains to suppress it. This method was really amazing and terrifying. The battle that had taken place countless years ago suddenly appeared in the minds of many people. Pantheon had declined from his peak and glory. Someone had even broken into his Pantheon palace and eventually killed him. Since then, no one had heard of the whereabouts of the Pantheon palace. Previously, everyone thought that the Pan-Heavenly Palace might have a spirit. It disappeared after the death of its master, or was obtained by someone. Therefore, it had never appeared. However, now they discovered that it did not disappear, nor was it obtained by someone. Instead, it was exiled into the endless void. Therefore, for countless years, no one could know the whereabouts of the Pan-Heavenly Palace. It feels a bit like the 100 birds paying homage to the Phoenix Palace. However, although it seems to be stronger than the 100 birds paying homage to the Phoenix Palace, the supreme aura contained in it is inferior. A thought suddenly emerged in Yi Shiwen's mind. In the past, he had seen the 100 birds paying homage to the Phoenix Palace in the Heaven Realm. However, this Pan-Heavenly Palace and the 100 birds paying homage to the Phoenix Palace had their own strengths. In terms of power, the Pan-Heavenly Palace was superior. However, in terms of the supreme aura, it was inferior to the 100 birds paying homage to the Phoenix Palace. After all, the two masters of the 100 birds paying homage to the Phoenix Palace used to be supreme and ruled the heavens. Although the Pantheon Emperor was powerful, he only ruled the Storm Sea region. The two could not be mentioned in the same breath. However, even so, the Pan-Heavenly Palace was still priceless. If Yi Shiwen could obtain the Pan-Heavenly Palace, then no one would be able to hunt him down in the future. Even if he were to face the pursuit of a super tycoon of the Ninth Realm, he would still be as steady as a mountain and remain unmoved. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen immediately became excited. After a stride, he had already entered the Pan-Heavenly Palace. Behind him, whether it was Hegemon Guiyuan or Emperor Li, they had almost entered the Pan-Heavenly Palace one after another. The Pan-Heavenly Palace looked huge from the outside, but there was actually a mystery inside. Chapter 31:28. The moment they stepped into the Pan-Heavenly Palace, they found that everything around them had suddenly changed. In an instant there was endless darkness, just like the chaos before the beginning of the universe. There was nothing and nothing could be seen. Even Yi Shiwen himself could not see himself. This is an illusory array? No, it doesn't look like an ordinary illusory array. Yi Shiwen could not even feel his own existence, although he knew that he definitely existed. Having cultivated to such a level, there was naturally no need to mention the persistence of his Taoist heart. It could even be said that he was very stubborn. He only believed in what he saw. Even if he could not see himself, he knew that he existed. If it was an ordinary person, they might even doubt their own existence after staying in such a place for a long time. Or perhaps they were just a thought and nothing existed at all. It was just a figment of their imagination. In that case, his consciousness would slowly dissipate, just like when comprehending the Tao, he would slowly integrate with the Tao, become a part of the Tao, and eventually lose himself. Therefore, this array seemed to be nothing, but in fact it was very terrifying. Although Yi Shiwen saw through the essence of this illusory array in an instant, there was no way to see through it at once. Even when he used his spiritual power and directly displayed the dual pupils, there was no way to see through it immediately. It was as if there was a kind of power blocking in front of him, preventing him from seeing the truth, preventing him from seeing everything. However, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. He just operated his martial power. Under his thoughts, his body slowly emerged, and he forcibly reappeared his physical body. At his level of cultivation, it could be said that it was not a problem to split heaven and earth. One thought could regenerate the physical body, and one thought could destroy the world. His thoughts were the will of the Tao. He sat cross-legged, and the Mingxin ancient tree in his body began to gradually emit light, so that his thoughts would not be engulfed by this darkness. Then he sat cross-legged, and all the darkness around him could not be an obstacle to him, and even became the Tao for him to comprehend. He did not know how long had passed. It seemed like a moment had passed. It also seemed like a century had passed. Yi Shiwen suddenly opened his eyes, and his eyes turned into a mysterious light of the Tao. In front of his eyes, the darkness gradually faded, and gradually restored to its original appearance. Yi Shiwen reappeared in the main hall. "It really is just an illusion array." Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and said. It was indeed an illusory matrix. However, an illusory matrix that could enchant an emperor wasn't something that an ordinary person could do. The others were still trapped in the illusory matrix. Yi Shiwen was the first to wake up. He even saw the figures of the Gungjin Tiger Emperor and the Eternal Divine Emperor among those figures. They had also entered the illusory matrix. However, Yi Shiwen had indeed been lost in the illusory array for quite some time. Just a thought flashed through his mind, and he immediately got out of the range of this illusory matrix. Now that he was the only one who had woken up, it was a good time. He hurriedly dashed towards the depths of the hall. Soon, a huge inner world appeared in front of him. This inner world was very huge. It could even be said that every single palace in the Pan-Heavenly Palace was actually an inner world. Although the Pan-Heavenly Palace looked huge on the outside, its inner world was even bigger. The entire inner world was immersed in a mysterious and profound law. Yi Shiwen could even see the law passing through it with his naked eyes. It was as if there was a mysterious power that made these laws and everything between the heavens and the earth appear in front of everyone. Yi Shiwen could see through many mysteries at a glance. And in the center of this world, a huge stone tablet stood in the void. This stone tablet was engraved with some mysterious and ancient characters. Even Yi Shiwen couldn't understand them. He had never seen such characters before. They were completely different from the characters that were commonly used in the Fortune Divine Dynasty. They seemed simple and desolate. Yi Shiwen didn't know which era and where these characters came from. These characters pointed to the original meaning of the Great Way. It was a kind of Tao text. The reason why Yi Shiwen couldn't understand them was that he didn't have a deep understanding of these great ways. In fact, many of them were beyond the scope of Yi Shiwen's understanding. Could these characters have been left behind by the Pan-Heavenly Lord? Yi Shiwen immediately reacted. Was there any Taoist text in the world that he couldn't understand? It was simply impossible. Only the Taoist text left behind by a heavenly master-level expert could possibly be incomprehensible to him, because the Tao text contained the understanding of the Great Way. If one didn't have that understanding of the Great Way, it was naturally impossible to understand the meaning of the Tao text. But he still knew that these Tao texts were very precious. Yi Shiwen immediately formed a big hand and grabbed towards this stone tablet. The stone tablet immediately burst into dazzling blazing light, and Yi Shiwen's hand was immediately bounced back. Divine objects had spirit. Even if this stone tablet itself was ordinary, these Tao text engraved on it would absorb the world's spiritual energy for a long time. Entwined with the rules of the world, even an ordinary stone would become a divine object of the world. It's a little interesting. Yi Shiwen wasn't discouraged. Originally, he had formed a big hand casually. But now, endless laws entwined in the sky and formed a big hand. Then, he grabbed this stone tablet. Bang! The spiritual light and the dazzling divine radiance on the stone tablet were immediately extinguished by Yi Shiwen. There was no way to resist. After all, no matter how powerful the divine object was, it was impossible to compete with a powerful emperor lord like Yi Shiwen. This stone tablet was quickly grabbed by Yi Shiwen into his inner world. As soon as it entered Yi Shiwen's inner world, the stone tablet still wanted to break free. However, it was immediately suppressed by the martial emperor's seal. The martial emperor's seal transformed into 3,000 martial arts. Each martial art would transform into a divine chain that would firmly fix this stone tablet in place. This made it impossible for the stone tablet to break free. As soon as Yi Shiwen grabbed the stone tablet, the vision in the world disappeared without a trace in an instant. It was as if all of this didn't exist at all. The entire world returned to its normal appearance. The original strange vision of the flying laws in the sky disappeared without a trace, as if it had never existed. And just after a few breaths, two figures jumped in almost one after another. It was none other than Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan and Emperor Li. The two of them broke through the illusory array almost at the same time and appeared here at the same time. Especially Hegemon Gui Yuan, who looked directly at Yi Shiwen. He was also a little surprised that Yi Shiwen could break through the illusory array so much earlier than them. But soon, his eyes looked at the entire world. His eyes were first filled with shock, then full of disappointment. Impossible! How can it not exist? Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan murmured to himself. Could it be that the legendary Tao scripture stone inscription doesn't exist? Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan murmured to himself while frantically probing with his divine senses. It seemed as if he was looking for something. However, Emperor Li didn't think so much. He was just surprised that Yi Shiwen came in earlier than them. Yi Shiwen's heart skipped a beat because he heard Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan's words. Tao Scripture Stone Inscription. He immediately understood that the Tao Scripture Stone inscription that Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan was talking about should be the stone tablet that was engraved with supreme Tao runes. However, what exactly was this Tao Scripture Stone inscription? It could actually make Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan so absent-minded. He even suspected that the main purpose of Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan coming in was to look for this Tao Scripture Stone inscription. Is it you? Hegemon Gui Yuan immediately looked at Yi Shiwen. Because Yi Shiwen had entered earlier than them, if there was a possibility that the stone inscription of the Tao scripture could be lost, it would definitely be in Yi Shiwen's hands. Yi Shiwen didn't care about him at all. Emperor Li, who was at the side, also noticed the situation over here. This was because he also noticed that Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan seemed to be looking for something. After failing to find it, he gritted his teeth and looked at Yi Shiwen. Could it be that Yi Shiwen had really obtained some extraordinary magic weapon? Emperor Li had already guessed many of the reasons for the situation with just a little speculation. However, he didn't know what Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan was looking for. Could it be that it was really something extraordinary? At the same time, his eyes were staring at Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan, who knew that after Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan blurted out this sentence, he seemed to have realized something and immediately stopped talking. However, a pair of ferocious eyes were firmly staring at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen also realized that this Tao scripture stone inscription might really be an extraordinary existence. Otherwise, Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan wouldn't have behaved like this. With the strength that Yi Shiwen had displayed just now, if it wasn't for the fact that it was of great importance, Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan wouldn't dare to glare at him so angrily. However, Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan obviously didn't want to reveal this information to Emperor Li. Obviously, he was also afraid that Emperor Li would join the competition after learning about it. At that time, there would be another peerless competitor. Although Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid of Emperor Li, he was still slightly relieved that Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan didn't say it. He also didn't want to go against Emperor Li. However, he became vigilant in his heart. Since this Tao scripture stone inscription was so important, Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan would definitely not let it go. Even if he couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen, Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan had the support of a supergiant like Sky-Shaking Turtle Emperor. In a short period of time, Yi Shiwen was definitely not a match for him. At this time, Yi Shiwen's expression didn't change, but his heart was already overflowing with murderous intent. He was thinking of many ways to kill Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan, who knew this secret, before leaving the Heavenly Palace. Even if Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan wasn't sure, he didn't want to let go of this hidden danger. When Emperor Li saw that both of them were silent, it was obvious that there was some tacit understanding between them. He suddenly felt a little depressed, and there was a commotion behind the three of them. More sovereign emperors broke through the illusory array and leaped in. Chapter 31-29. Although the illusory array at the entrance of the palace was impressive, those who could rush in here were super experts of the emperor level. They had already walked their own path on the heavenly Tao. They had already stepped into an unprecedented realm. This illusory array was difficult to deal with, but it could only stop them for a short period of time. The two leaders among these emperor-level experts were Tiger Emperor Gung Jin and Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan. In just a short period of time, their injuries were almost healed. Although they did not know if there would be deeper injuries, their combat power had recovered by more than half. It was not comparable to before. The difficulty of dealing with emperor-level experts was evident. If one could not kill them all in one go, then it would be almost impossible to kill them. It was rare to see someone like Yi Shiwen who could slaughter emperor-level experts like chopping cabbages. It could even be said that only Yi Shiwen could do it. The two of them were a little vigilant. At the same time, they looked at Yi Shiwen with gritted teeth. They could not wait to tear him into pieces. Yi Shiwen saw that these people had already jumped into the hall. Obviously, there was nothing good left in this hall. He didn't stay for long. He stepped on an escape light and disappeared in front of everyone. Emperor Li, who came behind Yi Shiwen, also stepped on an escape light and disappeared. He had already checked. There was nothing good in this hall. If there was, it might have fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. Previously, he also had some doubts about Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan's words. There must be something extraordinary that fell into Yi Shiwen's hands. However, Yi Shiwen was not an ordinary person. It was not worthwhile to become enemies with Yi Shiwen for a heavenly Tao item. Yi Shiwen was an existence that could completely suppress Tiger Emperor Gung Jin and Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan. He even almost killed Emperor Li. Such a person could be said to be extremely dangerous. If it was not necessary, Emperor Li did not want to offend such an existence. The others also looked at each other. Soon, they also dispersed and flew towards the various palace world. They were also powerful people. With a sweep of their divine senses, they knew that there was nothing good in this palace. Soon, only Eternal Divine Emperor, Tiger Emperor Gung Jin, and Hegemon Emperor Gui Yuan were left. Even the people they brought had scattered to fight for the heavenly Tao items. Although those emperor-level experts temporarily obeyed their command, it was only temporary. After all, they were emperor-level experts. How could they really be willing to be their subordinates? If we don't get rid of this monster, it will be a great threat to all three of us. Tiger Emperor Gung Jin gritted his teeth and said. He was the first to fight with Yi Shiwen, so he knew Yi Shiwen's strength the best. But what shocked him the most was not Yi Shiwen's strength, but Yi Shiwen's amazing progress. He remembered that when he first noticed Yi Shiwen, he was only at the peak of the 5th realm. Although Yi Shiwen was powerful at that time, he didn't put him in his eyes. In the eyes of the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor, defeating Yi Shiwen was not a difficult task at all. Realm Expert level of the Realm Expert. Yi Emperor Yi Realm. Yi Realm Expert level Expert. Had already. Who with? Yi Realm Expert of Emperor level Realm Expert level Expert. And when he appeared again, he had already surpassed the 6th level and could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. No, he might even be stronger than him. Thinking of such a speed of improvement, he couldn't help but be shocked. He could faintly guess that Yi Shiwen's cultivation speed was related to the time fragment. Otherwise, with the cultivation speed of an emperor, even if he suddenly became enlightened, it would be impossible to progress to this point in such a short period of time. However, Yi Shiwen was so scared that he decided to use the precious time fragment in a short period of time. His wisdom was definitely not that of an ordinary person. He must be careful. That's right, I must make him die without a burial place, the Eternal Divine Emperor said while gnashing his teeth. He had been beaten like a dead dog even though it was 2 against 1. If he couldn't kill Yi Shiwen and take revenge, then he might not have a foothold in the heavenly Taoism in the future. In fact, he might even be reduced to a laughingstock. Hegemen Gui Yuan nodded. Initially, he wanted to kill Yi Shiwen because of the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. However, he now had another reason to kill Yi Shiwen. The Tao Scripture stone inscription was extremely important. He couldn't allow it to fall into the hands of others. Therefore, he wouldn't be stingy in using any means. It's just that this guy is not only ferocious but he is also extremely good at scheming. It's almost impossible to kill him without planning properly, said the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. He had almost suffered a big loss in Yi Shiwen's hands. It could be said that he had a lot of experience in this aspect. However, this wasn't a good experience. The 2 people who had a fortuitous encounter also approved of this. They didn't mind cooperating with their old enemy in order to eradicate Yi Shiwen. We must plan properly. We mustn't let him be arrogant. The 3 experts had joined hands. They even dared to plot against the heavens. Yi Shiwen naturally didn't know the plans of the 3 experts. However, he could guess that it was impossible for them to simply let it go. They must have a backup plan. Since you all want to come to me, that's great. Don't let me down. Let's go together and settle this together. Yi Shiwen's face revealed a somewhat cold smile. To him, these 3 people were also a great threat. The sovereign emperors of the 6th realm were definitely not ordinary people. Moreover, they all had a huge force behind them. Any one of them could make Yi Shiwen suffer a grievance. If these 3 people used the forces of the 3 major forces to surround and intercept him after he left, that would be the real trouble. It would be better to eliminate them as soon as possible. Therefore, although he didn't know the plans of the 3 experts, it was actually within his calculations. He was now waiting for the 3 experts to come and die together. Ha ha ha, since I'm going to pierce through the heavens, I'll do it even more. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly. As his thoughts drifted away, Yi Shiwen had already left the space of this hall and entered another space. However, as he broke through more and more palaces, he found that there were almost no heavenly treasures in the inner space of these palaces. It was as if they had been swept clean. That's not right. With the environment of the Pan-Heavenly Palace, whether it is the spiritual energy or the natural law, even if it was originally empty, some heavenly treasures would naturally be born after a long time. How could there be no heavenly treasures at all? Yi Shiwen was a little surprised. Heavenly treasures naturally couldn't be born out of thin air. There must be a suitable environment for them to be born. Obviously, the Pan-Heavenly Palace was such a suitable environment. However, the problem was that he didn't find any decent heavenly treasures. Occasionally, he found some heavenly treasures, but their age was very short. It was only 1,000 years old. Although it was considered precious to the outside world, it was not worth mentioning in his eyes. It's like someone is harvesting it. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and made a terrible speculation. However, he quickly overturned this idea. This was impossible. The Pantheon Palace had been chained up by countless divine chains and banished into the endless void. This should be the first time it had appeared in the world. Who would be able to harvest it? Not to mention that the plunder was so clean. It was simply 1 meter high. Could it be that someone in the Heavenly Palace survived? Yi Shiwen suddenly felt a chill on his back. His cultivation and computing ability had already climbed to the peak of perfection. So, he could spread out many thoughts with just one thought. Logically speaking, even if there was a peerless powerhouse who survived the battle of the Heavenly Palace, he should have already fallen. Although the lifespan of an emperor-level creature was long, it was only tens of millions of years. Even if they used various secret techniques and many heavenly treasures to extend their lifespan, how long could they live? It had been more than 100 million years since the era of Heavenly Venerable. How could anyone survive? Unless there was an emperor-level creature who cut off their own magical way and finally achieved the law way, transcending life and death. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen also felt a chill. If such a person really existed, then this place would be very dangerous. Speaking of which, wasn't Heavenly Venerable the most typical example? Therefore, according to many legends, there was a method in the Heavenly Palace that could allow emperor-level creatures to cut off their own way. This attracted countless emperor-level creatures to appear. Many thoughts spread out like a dense cobweb. However, he didn't stop. He continued to search the worlds one by one. Soon, he also encountered other emperor lords. And he also knew that these emperor lords were the same as him. All of them had transformed into nothingness. Just as he had guessed earlier, many treasures and heavenly treasures in this world had already been plundered by others. The 1 meter higher sky hadn't given them a chance to do so. As he went deeper, he met more and more other emperor lords. Everyone took different routes to the same destination. Gradually, they headed towards the deepest part of the palace, the Heavenly Palace. In fact, that was the true Heavenly Palace. The other halls and senior sisters were just a cluster of palaces that had been derived from it. During the most glorious period of Heavenly Venerable, this was almost the highest holy place in the Stormy Sea region. Countless powerhouses came to worship it every day. This was also the ultimate purpose of everyone's trip. Even if there was not a trace of treasure in so many palaces, everyone was unwilling to give up like this. That was their final goal and their last hope. Taoist Wu Di, it seems that you have also gained nothing? At the entrance of the real hall of the Heavenly Palace, Emperor Li looked at Yi Shiwen with a smile on his face. It seemed that not gaining anything was not a blow to him. Chapter 31:30. It seems that Taoist Emperor Li has also gained nothing? Yi Shiwen looked at Emperor Li with a smile on his face. It was not surprising, and it was not that he was lucky. He just happened to pass through those worlds without heavenly treasures. It seems that the real treasure should be inside, Emperor Li said. As he said this, Emperor Li's eyes burst with a burst of amazing light. He looked towards the Pantheon Palace, and a smile appeared on his face. It really is inside? Yi Shiwen looked at Emperor Li's eyes. It was indeed an amazing magical power, not inferior to his own dual pupils. The foundation of the Fortune God dynasty was really terrifying. They could actually have such a magical power of the sky eye. Looking at Emperor Li's appearance, it was obvious that he was not as proficient in the sky eye as the Jade Eye Emperor. Just an ordinary emperor could also have such amazing cultivation in this aspect. The foundation of the Fortune God dynasty was more profound than he thought. Yi Shiwen heard this and also opened his dual pupils. Suddenly, the fog in front of the Pantheon Palace could no longer block his vision. In his eyes, endless light suddenly soared into the sky. Everywhere he looked, he saw that the entire main hall of the Pantheon Palace was like a huge treasure house. He did not know how many divine objects were blooming with their own amazing light. Even Yi Shiwen hadn't seen many heavenly treasures before. So, it was obvious that they were unique to the fortune world. In fact, they might even be unique to other different worlds. Therefore, Yi Shiwen hadn't seen them even with his vast knowledge. Hiss! Yi Shiwen could not help but take a breath of cold air. Although because of the fog, Yi Shiwen's range of vision was very small, but the part that he could see was also very amazing. The entire main hall was as bright as day, as if the night would never be able to invade. However, what made the entire main hall as bright as day was not the divine light of the divine objects, but the ancient lamps. These ancient lamps were actually fueled by the great way origin of the Emperor. Beneath each ancient lamp was a vat of the Imperial Lord's great Tao quintessence. That was why these ancient lamps were able to burn eternally and never be extinguished. It was to the extent where even these ancient lamps were extraordinary. They were part of an extremely formidable magical artifact. These ancient lamps should be a complete set of magic tools. Now that they were separated and used as ordinary lamps, it was simply a reckless waste of God's gift. The light emitted by these ancient lamps was not only as bright as daytime, but it also had the function of dispelling all the darkness. If a person cultivated under these ancient lamps, he or she would have a tranquil heart. The effect of not falling into the darkness was very similar to the effect of the enlightening mind ancient tree. However, these ancient lamps were more professional than the enlightening mind ancient tree. It was common knowledge that the cultivation of an Emperor Realm Lord couldn't be smooth sailing. There was always the danger of qi deviation. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid in the myriad heavens. That was because any heart demon would dare to approach him in the myriad heavens. In fact, his protective aura shield would grind them to pieces the moment they approached him. What heart demon ancestor? Even the real heart demon ancestor wasn't his match. However, it was different in the Fortune God dynasty. The heart demons here were equally terrifying. Some heart demons had even succeeded in becoming Emperor Realm Lord. They had walked a path that no one had ever walked before. They had opened up the heart demon heaven above the myriad heavens. It was the base camp of the heart demons. They were very rampant. It was said that the real heart demon ancestor was a heavenly master. In order to eliminate these heart demons that were endangering the world, the Fortune God dynasty had even organized an expeditionary force to go on an expedition to the heart demon heaven. Who knew that this expeditionary force would be taken advantage of by the heart demons? Not only did they fail to eliminate the heart demons, but they also became the slaves of the heart demons. Since then, the heart demons weren't just an illusory existence. With this expeditionary force as the foundation, they could even influence the situation of the Fortune God dynasty. They would go on expeditionary campaigns, invade various worlds, and seize experts as slaves to join their heart demon army. The heart demons of the myriad heavens were simply not as terrifying as the heart demons of the Fortune God dynasty. Experts from all sides couldn't do anything about these heart demons. As long as there were cultivators, they would naturally have heart demons. They were naturally born with them. They were the negative part of the cultivator's mind. There was no way to avoid them. Even Emperor Lords could fall prey to them. And if one was accompanied by these ancient lamps, any heart demons that dared to approach them would all be courting death. In the entire main hall there were many extraordinary heavenly treasures. But soon, the fog regained the upper hand and blocked Yi Shiwen's vision. Fellow Taoist martial emperor, you must have seen it too. Emperor Li couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. I've only heard that Pan Tian accidentally obtained a set of great illuminating lamps. I didn't expect it to be true. Pan Tian 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 relied on this set of great illuminating lamps to fight back against the heart demon heaven. He killed his way to the heart demon heaven and turned it upside down. He completely eliminated the heart demons that were born in his heart. Since then, he was no longer affected by the heart demons, and his cultivation naturally progressed at a rapid pace. Yi Shiwen's eyes immediately lit up when he heard this. If what Emperor Li said was true, then the Emperor's origin below was nothing compared to the great illuminating lamps. This kind of special Dao tool was much more precious than ordinary Dao tools. It should be known that ever since the birth of cultivators had given birth to their own heart demons. After these heart demons were born, they would appear in the heart demon heaven. No one knew where the heart demon heaven was. They only knew that these heart demons were connected to the cultivator. Even emperor lords were no exception. However, emperor lords were usually very strong-willed and would not be affected at all. But this didn't mean that these heart demons did not exist. It was just that these heart demons were hidden in the heart demon heaven. They could appear at any time and kill people at any time. Many emperor lords hated these heart demons so much that they gnashed their teeth. But there was nothing they could do because they didn't know where the heart demon heaven was. Moreover, everyone had seen the tragic fate of that expeditionary army. After that, the heart demon heaven was no longer just an illusion. With this expeditionary army as the foundation, the heart demon heaven even gave birth to many experts with physical bodies. They could influence the situation in the fortune realm. Their influence and combat power could not be mentioned in the same breath. Yi Shiwen naturally knew that he also had many heart demons. He also had obsessions in his heart. All cultivators had obsessions. Without obsessions, there was no way to achieve Tao. But at the same time, these obsessions would turn into heart demons and become the biggest obstacles for cultivators. Even Yi Shiwen was no exception. However, he knew that there was nothing he could do about it. He had the Mingxin ancient tree to protect him, so the inner demons could not do anything to him. However, if he had the opportunity to kill his way back to the heart demon sky and completely wipe out his inner demons, then the many cultivation barriers he faced would no longer be considered as barriers. Many obstacles that might have been stuck would disappear without a trace. When that time came, Yi Shiwen's cultivation speed would be much faster. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen was naturally very tempted. He must snatch it. Dear Emperor Li, both of us have seen the many divine objects in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. How about we join forces and split the divine objects in the Pan-Heavenly Palace equally? Yi Shiwen immediately said. Equally? You two are really arrogant. A cold voice came over. The Eternal Sage Emperor had also arrived in front of the Pan-Heavenly Palace. I want to split it equally. What can you do? Yi Shiwen said coldly. Equally? You are too optimistic. The Gung Jin Tiger Emperor had also appeared. And next to the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor was the Guiyuan Sage Emperor. Behind these three emperors were the emperor lords and emperor-level creatures of their respective camp. Since they could not find any valuable targets, everyone's target had already gathered here. It wasn't just them. Soon, many other imperial emperors arrived as well. Dear friends, Yi Shiwen is really greedy. He wants to split the many treasures in the Pan-Heavenly Palace equally with Emperor Li, obviously. He doesn't want to leave anything for us. Eternal Sage Emperor said slowly. Suddenly, the complexions of the other emperors changed. They looked at Yi Shiwen and Emperor Li with dissatisfaction. The martial power of these two people was extremely tyrannical. However, it was too unsightly. With so many people here, they dared to discuss splitting the treasures. What's wrong? Can't I? Emperor Li was not a person who was afraid of trouble. Suddenly, a smile appeared on his face. Obviously, he agreed with Yi Shiwen's method of splitting. If he was alone, he would not stand up to attract attention. However, with Yi Shiwen as an alliance, it was completely different. He had also seen Yi Shiwen's strength just now. Even if we split it, I will ask again. Who is in favor? Yi Shiwen said lightly. Who is against? Yi Shiwen's gaze was like a knife. He looked directly at the crowd, as if he wanted to see who would stand up to oppose. This made many emperors who wanted to stand up to oppose a little hesitant. They also understood the principle of shooting the bird that stands out. It was true that the tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. However, Yi Shiwen was obviously well established. It was hard to say whether the wind could blow him away. At least, they did not want to be the first to raise their hand to oppose. The three of them were a little annoyed when they saw that everyone was terrified. The three of them were the leaders. They had thought that they would be able to successfully force Yi Shiwen to retreat. However, they didn't expect that Yi Shiwen's strength would far exceed their expectations. They did not care about their opposition at all. It was as if they wanted to eat alone. Emperor Li, do you really want to get involved with this person? You should know that he is a person who was personally issued a wanted order. Eternal Sage Emperor gritted his teeth and looked at Emperor Li. How interesting. Since when can the heavenly Taoism order the Fortune God dynasty to do things? If you are not convinced, just fight. I like what Martial Emperor said. Emperor Li grinned. Who is in favor? Who is against? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.